Part 1. The war begins. Pride, wrath, and the gods, our tale begins, not on mortal soil, but in Olympus's resplendent halls, where ambrosia flows freely and divine radiance illuminates every corner. The immortals have assembled to witness a momentous occasion, the wedding of Peleus, the greatest among mortal heroes, to Thetis, the silver-footed sea nymph, whose beauty surpasses all others. Golden tables overflow with celestial delicacies, while the muses' voices weave songs celebrating love's triumph over destiny. Yet, within this celebration of joy, the first seeds of destruction are quietly planted. Eris, goddess of discord, arrives uninvited to this divine gathering, her features contorted with bitter resentment at her exclusion. Her anger, cultivated through countless ages, has reached its breaking point. Now the proud Olympians will face her vengeance. From within her robes, she produces a golden apple of flawless beauty, its surface bearing an inscription destined to doom entire generations for the fairest. The apple soars through perfumed air and comes to rest among three goddesses, each utterly convinced of her own supreme beauty. Hera, queen of the heavens, reaches for the prize with commanding authority. Has she not reigned alongside the king of immortals? Does not all creation acknowledge her sovereignty? Yet Athena, the bride goddess of wisdom and warfare, sprung from Zeus's own head, challenges this claim. She who counsels heroes and bestows victory surely transcends mere regal bearing. But Aphrodite, the golden goddess, embodying love and beauty itself, dismisses both their claims with laughter. How can lifeless marble and austere wisdom rival the force that brings all creation to its knees? The three goddesses turn expectantly to Zeus for his verdict. But the Lord of Olympus has not maintained celestial rule for ages without acquiring profound wisdom. Choosing among his wife, his daughter, and the goddess who commands even his own heart would ignite divine civil war. With masterful diplomacy, he proclaims that such beauty can only be properly judged by mortal eyes, uncorrupted by celestial intrigue. Upon Mount Ida's slopes, distant from Troy's magnificent marble halls, the shepherd prince Paris tends his father's flocks in blissful ignorance. He remains unaware of his royal lineage, for prophecy foretold that Priam's son would bring his city to ruin. The aged king, unable to murder his own child, had commanded the infant be abandoned on the mountainside. But compassionate shepherds discovered and raised him. Now a grown man, Paris possesses divine-like beauty, with eyes dark as wine and hands gentle enough to calm the most savage beast. When Hermes descends with his divine companions, the very atmosphere surrounding Paris radiates otherworldly splendor. The three goddesses manifest before him in glory that should incinerate mortal vision, yet each carefully veils her complete radiance to prevent the young shepherd's death. They demand his judgment, and each presents temptations that would seduce the wisest monarch. Hera, in her majesty, promises dominion over all earthly lands. "Select me," she proclaims, "and you shall command from sunrise to sunset. Kings will prostrate themselves before your throne, and your empire will encompass the world." Her words conjure visions of gilded cities and vast armies marching at his command. Athena, her gray eyes radiating supernatural intelligence, offers wisdom beyond human comprehension and triumph in every conflict. "Select me," she declares, "and you will exceed all mortals in strategy and combat. Your tactics will prove infallible. Your spear will always find its mark. Poets will celebrate your victories until the stars themselves perish. But Aphrodite advances with a smile that sets Paris's heart racing wildly. Her beauty awakens something profound, the yearning that animates all living creatures, the exquisite madness that makes existence worthwhile. "Select me," she murmurs, "and I will bestow upon you the love of the world's most beautiful woman." Helen of Sparta exceeds all mortal women as the sun surpasses the stars. She will be yours, and in her embrace you will experience unimaginable bliss. Paris, his judgment clouded by youth and longing, awards the apple to Aphrodite. In that instant, the destiny of two magnificent cities is irrevocably sealed. Hera and Athena depart in glacial fury, their hatred for Troy now eternal and merciless. This insult will not be forgotten, their retribution will be devastating. The journey to Sparta unfolds like a feverish dream. Paris, now revealed as Trojan royalty, travels bearing lavish gifts and diplomatic protection. Menelaus, Sparta's king, receives him with all honors befitting a royal guest. For hospitality's sacred laws govern civilized society. The red-haired monarch proudly displays his palace, his treasures, and most especially his wife, Helen, whose beauty renders even battle-hardened warriors speechless. Helen, daughter of Zeus and Leda, born from a swan's egg, is truly the most beautiful woman ever to draw breath. Her beauty carries divine essence. When she enters any space, powerful men forget their own identities, and women weep with envy and despair. Though married to Menelaus for years, and mother to his daughter, her beauty remains untouched by time or childbirth. When Paris beholds Helen, Aphrodite's promise ignites in his blood like intoxicating wine. The goddess whispers seductively in his mind, obscures his judgment, and inflames his desire, until honor and sacred hospitality become meaningless words. Helen finds herself inexplicably drawn to the young prince. Aphrodite weaves her enchantments upon both, creating spells of love and longing that intensify with each furtive glance. Menelaus, trusting his guest and confident in his wife's fidelity, departs for Crete to attend his grandfather's funeral rites, leaving Paris as his household's guardian, under night's cover, with Aphrodite directing their path. Paris and Helen flee Sparta together, carrying much of Menelaus's treasure and trampling sacred hospitality bonds beneath their feet. When Menelaus returns to discover his violated home and stolen wife, his rage threatens to collapse his palace's very pillars. This violation cuts far deeper than simple adultery. The laws of guest friendship, civilization's very foundation, have been shattered. His brother Agamemnon, Mycenae's king, and the Achaeans' most powerful ruler, champions the call for vengeance. The great oath that once bound Helen's suitors now transforms into a weapon of war. Years earlier, when every king and prince in Achaea competed for her hand, clever Odysseus had proposed that all swear to defend Helen's chosen husband. Now that oath summons nobility's finest to arms. Ajax the Great with his massive shield, Diomedes of the thunderous war cry, Idomeneus of Crete, and countless others. Even reluctant heroes like Odysseus himself are swept into the gathering tempest. 9 long years have passed since 1,000 black ships carried the Achaean host across the wind-dark sea to Troy's shores. What began as a thunderous assault when warriors dreamed of swift triumph and glorious spoils has calcified into relentless siege warfare. Troy's legendary walls, raised by divine hands in ancient times, stand defiant against every assault. The conflict has devolved into endless raids and skirmishes. The Achaeans command the surrounding lands, while the Trojans remain sheltered behind their impenetrable fortifications. Young men who departed Achaea with smooth cheeks now bear gray beards from years of battle. Countless warriors who once boasted of their prowess lie cold beneath Trojan earth, their remains scattered by carrion birds. This endless war has devoured an entire generation, filling both lands with grieving widows and orphaned children. Parents on both shores mourn sons who will never return. Still, neither army will surrender. The Achaeans' honor demands Helen's restoration. Trojan dignity refuses capitulation. Into this exhausted deadlock arrives a terror that makes human combat seem merciful. Plague descends upon the Achaean encampment with the accuracy of celestial arrows, slaughtering soldiers who survived innumerable battles. This pestilence respects neither rank nor valor. Nobles perish as swiftly as foot soldiers, their flesh consumed by fevers no healer can remedy. The atmosphere grows dense with smoke from countless funeral pyres. For 9 days, the plague ravages the camp, as the once mighty army which boasted of its invincibility cowers before this invisible adversary. Each sunrise reveals fresh casualties and mounting dread. Warriors who charge Trojan spears without hesitation now flinch at shadows, uncertain if they'll witness another dusk. Military order disintegrates as divine wrath shatters discipline. Supply chains collapse, war councils devolve into bitter accusations, and the great expedition teeters on the brink of ignominious extinction by disease. On the 10th day, Achilles, Peleus' son, and mightiest of all warriors, reaches his breaking point. His Myrmidons, the elite forces who followed him from Phthia, have been devastated by the plague, and his own heart blazes with impotent fury. He summons the entire army, his voice piercing the camp's despair like a bronze blade through silk. If some immortal has unleashed this pestilence, he declares, they must uncover what transgression has provoked celestial vengeance. Calchas the prophet emerges from the crowd, his countenance ashen with terror and dreadful understanding. He has anticipated this moment, feared it, attempted to evade it, but destiny cannot be denied. He possesses the truth that will ignite royal fury, yet he dares not speak it unprotected. The aged seer's voice trembles as he addresses Achilles. Greatest of warriors, you demand I reveal the cause of Apollo's wrath, but I am afraid. Promise me your protection. Swear by all the heavenly powers that you will shield me, for my revelation will provoke the rage of one who commands many Achaeans. His gaze shifts nervously toward Agamemnon's pavilion, his meaning unmistakable to all observers. Achilles, his youthful features hardened with resolve, pledges the oath immediately. Speak without fear, old man, while breath fills my lungs and light touches my eyes. No one shall harm you beside these hollow ships, not one Achaeanot, even if you name the king himself, who now claims supremacy among us. The declaration resonates with unwavering certainty, and Calchas draws courage from the young champion's vow. When the truth emerges, it strikes the assembly like Zeus's thunderbolt. Apollo, the far-shooting god of the silver bow, has loosed these plague arrows because Agamemnon, son of Atreus, has dishonored Chryses, Apollo's devoted priest. The elderly priest had journeyed to the Achaean camp, bearing magnificent ransom for his daughter, Chryses, who was claimed as Agamemnon's war prize. With tears coursing down his weathered face, Chryses had pleaded for his child's return, invoking his patron god's name and offering gold sufficient to purchase a kingdom. But Agamemnon, intoxicated by power and victory's wine, had rejected the old man with words as sharp as weapons. Do not let me discover you, old fool, loitering near these hollow ships, or daring to return, lest your god's staff and sacred fillets prove worthless protection. The girl I will not surrender. She shall age in Argos, in my own household, far from her homeland, laboring at my loom and warming my bed. Depart now, and do not provoke me further, if you value your life. The priest had withdrawn, but not silently. Walking beside the thundering sea's shore, he had offered prayers to his patron god with words that burned like sacred flames. Hear me, silver-bowed Apollo, guardian of Chryse and holy Scylla, mighty ruler of Tenedos. If ever I adorned your temple with garlands, if ever I sacrificed rich thigh bones of bulls and goats upon your altar, grant me this petition. Let the Achaeans compensate for my tears with your arrows. And Apollo had answered his faithful servant's prayer. Down from Olympus he descended like nightfall itself, his silver bow across his shoulder, his quiver laden with death-bringing arrows. Initially, he struck the mules and swift hounds, then redirected his lethal shafts upon the men themselves. The funeral fires blazed without cessation, and the Achaean host withered beneath the immortal's merciless wrath. Now Calchas's revelation lingers in the atmosphere like smoke from the funeral pyres. The remedy is evident, yet bitter as poison. Chryses must be returned to her father without compensation, and sacred hecatombs must appease the offended deity. Every gaze turns toward Agamemnon, awaiting the king's response. Recognizing that royal pride will clash violently with military necessity, Agamemnon's face darkens like storm clouds gathering as rage floods his heart. This public humiliation wounds more deeply than any Trojan spear ever could. A ruler's honor is his very existence, and surrendering his prize before the assembled army amounts to confessing weakness. Yet he cannot refute the truth of Calchas's words. The plague argues more persuasively than any rhetoric. Through clenched teeth, he agrees to relinquish Chryses, but his subsequent words kindle a conflagration more devastating than Apollo's arrows ever ignited. I will surrender the girl, Agamemnon declares, his voice cold as tempered iron. But I refuse to stand alone among the Danaans without a prize. You all witness my honor departing. Therefore, bring me another prize at once, for I alone among the Argives shall not go empty-handed. That would be unseemly. His gaze, burning with wounded pride and calculated malice, fixes upon Achilles, son of Peleus. The greatest warrior sits motionless among his captains, but the king recognizes in him both danger and opportunity. Here is the man whose glory eclipses even royal splendor, whose martial skill reduces other heroes to mere shadows. Perhaps I shall claim your prize, Achilles, Agamemnon continues, each word deliberate as falling stones. The fair Brises shall become mine, and let whoever loses his prize nurse his anger. The confrontation that erupts will reverberate through eternity, immortalized by poets, yet unborn, and recounted at countless fires when the world grows ancient. Achilles springs to his feet, his youthful features transformed by terrible wrath, his voice slicing through the stunned assembly like a blade through silk. The insult sears his heart like molten bronze. To forfeit Brise's prize of honor, his solace in this merciless war is to be stripped of dignity before the entire world. You shameless cur, draped in audacity. Achilles' words thunder across the silent gathering. How can any Achaean follow you willingly, whether on campaign or into the fury of battle. I did not sail here to war against Trojan spearmen. They have wronged me in nothing. They never raided my cattle or horses, never ravaged my harvest in fertile field. Between us lie countless shadowy mountains and the resounding sea. No, you shameless wretch, we followed you to win honor for Menelaus and yourself from the Trojans. This you disregard. This means nothing to you. The young hero's voice swells with mounting fury, each word a spear thrust at royal authority. Never do I receive spoils equal to yours when the Achaeans plunder some prosperous city. My hands bear the greater burden of savage warfare, yet when the distribution comes, your prize far exceeds mine, while I return to my ships clutching some meager trophy, exhausted from battle. Now I shall sail for FTA, for it is far better to return home with my beaked ships than remain here dishonored, amassing wealth and treasure for your coffers. Agamemnon's response strikes swift as an arrow, his royal fury matching the warrior's rage. Flee then, if your heart commands it. I shall not beg you to remain on my account. Others stay who will honor me, Zeus, the counselor above all. You are the most odious to me of all the Zeus-nurtured kings, for discord is ever dear to you, strife, wars, and battles. If you possess great strength, some god bestowed it. Depart with your ships and companions, and rule over your myrmidons. I care nothing for you. I give no thought to your anger. But hear this declaration. As Apollo, the far shooter, strips Chryses from me, I shall seize fair-cheeked Brises, coming myself to your shelter, so you may comprehend how vastly I surpass you in power. The king's words strike Achilles like physical blows, and for one suspended moment, murder seems inevitable. His hand flies to the great sword at his side, its bronze blade singing as it clears the scabbard by a finger's breadth. The assembly freezes, every man understanding that if Peleus' son draws that weapon, Agamemnon will perish where he stands, and the Achaean cause will perish with him. But in that pivotal instant, invisible to all save Achilles himself, Athena materializes, the gride goddess dispatched by Hera, who cherishes both heroes despite their quarrel, seizes the young warrior by his golden hair. Her touch is simultaneously ice and flame, divine authority that brooks no defiance, and her words resound in his mind alone. I descended from heaven to restrain your fury, if you will heed me. Stay your hand, do not draw the sword, assail him with words instead. For I tell you this, and it shall come to pass hereafter. Threefold glorious gifts shall be yours because of this outrage. The sword slides back into its sheath with a sound like a sigh, but the rupture is irreversible. Achilles' words, when they emerge, carry prophetic weight, for his divine mother has granted him visions of what approaches, wine-sodden cur with a dog's face and a deer's heart. Never have you dared arm yourself for battle with your people, nor venture into ambush with the finest Achaeans, that appears as death to you. Yet I shall speak and swear a mighty oath by this scepter, which shall never again sprout leaves or branches since it first departed its stump in the mountains. This shall be my solemn oath. Some day longing for Peleus' son will overwhelm the Achaeans, every one of them, and on that day you will be powerless to aid them, despite your anguish, when multitudes fall dying before manslaying Hector. Then you will rend your heart within you in fury that you failed to honor the best of the Achaeans. With these words, he hurls the golden scepter to the ground and stalks from the assembly, his closest companions following in his wake. The prophecy lingers in the air like the scent of blood, and even Agamemnon feels a chill penetrate his heart despite his royal rage. The seizure of Briseis unfolds with ritual dignity and sacrificial anguish. The girl herself, daughter of a priest of Artemis, utters no word as she is escorted from Achilles' shelter to the king's pavilion. Her eyes meet those of her captor-turned-protector one final time, and in that glance resides all the sorrow of women in wartime, transferred from hand to hand like treasure, their own desires meaningless against the pride of men. As the sun descends over the wind-dark sea and waves lap against the black hulls of the Myrmidon ships, Achilles walks solitary along the water's edge. His rage has crystallized into something harder and more perilous a resolution that will transform the war itself. He summons his divine mother, and silver-footed Thetis rises from the depths like sea foam given form. Her immortal beauty shadowed by sorrow, for she has already foreseen her son's request. "My child," she says, her voice like the whisper of waves on shingle, "why do you weep? What grief has pierced your heart? Do not conceal it, but reveal all so we both may know." And he pours forth his grief and rage. The entire bitter chronicle of honor lost and pride wounded, culminating in a plea that burns like fire. "Mother, since you bore me for a brief life, high-thundering Zeus should have granted me honor, but now he has bestowed none whatsoever. Atreus' son has dishonored me, seizing my prize by force." Thetis weeps silver tears that cascade like rain upon the darkening sea. She knows her son's fate more clearly than he knows himself. Two destinies lie before him: long life devoid of glory, or a brief life crowned with immortal renown. She perceives now which path he has chosen, and though her heart fractures, she will not abandon him. "My poor child," she whispers, "why did I rear you, cursed as you are in your birth? Would that you could remain by your ships without tears and grief, since your lifetime is fleeting and not long. But now you are both swift-fated and wretched beyond all. Mortals, yet a mother's love transcends even divine wisdom." Thetis vows to carry her son's petition to the Thunderer himself, to implore Zeus to honor Achilles by granting victory to the Trojans, until the Achaeans recognize the worth of the warrior they have scorned. The price will be paid in Achaean blood, in the lives of heroes who might have survived had pride not poisoned their counsel. But Peleus' son will have his vengeance. On Olympus, Thetis discovers Zeus alone upon the highest summit, brooding over mortal fates with eyes that perceive all things. She reminds him of ancient debts, how she once saved him when other immortals conspired against his sovereignty. Now she claims payment for that service. "Honor my son, who is swiftest to die of all mortals. King Atreus' son has dishonored him, seizing his prize by force. But you, Zeus, the counselor, honor him. Grant victory to the Trojans, until the Achaeans render my son fitting honor and magnify his glory." The great head nods slowly, though Zeus comprehends the cost. His promise will set deity against deity, will precipitate civil war on Olympus itself. For Hera champions the Achaean cause and will not forgive this betrayal. But a promise made to Thetis cannot be rescinded. "Troublesome it is," he rumbles, his voice like distant thunder, "when you set me at variance with Hera, and she will reproach me with bitter words. But I will accomplish these things. Come, I will nod my head to you, so you may be assured. My word cannot be recalled, nor is it false, nor shall it remain unfulfilled. Whatever Zeus nods his head to becomes immutable fate." The great nod that follows shakes Olympus to its foundations, sets the stars dancing in their courses, and seals the destiny of heroes yet unborn. That very night, as Thetis returns to her ocean depths, and Zeus contemplates the price of promises, the Lord of Heaven dispatches a deceptive dream to Agamemnon in the guise of aged Nestor. The dream whispers of certain victory if the king attacks at dawn, claiming the immortals are now united in Troy's destruction. Agamemnon awakens with fire in his heart, accepting the lie as truth, yet driven by some divine folly that mirrors the false dream's deception. Agamemnon chooses a strange test of his army's resolve. Instead of rallying them with promises of imminent victory, he speaks words of despair and abandonment, urging them to flee for home with nothing to show for 9 years of blood and tears. The war-weary soldiers, their spirits ground down by nearly a decade of siege, seize upon these words like drowning men grasping at driftwood. Ancient longings surge through their ranks, memories of wives left behind, children who have grown without fathers, fields left untended, like an unstoppable tide rushing toward shore. The entire host stampedes toward their black-hulled ships in chaotic abandon, leaving their commanders paralyzed with shock. Only the cunning intervention of Odysseus, wielding Agamemnon's own royal scepter and invoking Zeus's divine authority, manages to stem the rout and restore order to the dissolving army. Now unfolds the magnificent catalogue of ships, as the poet's voice soars in ancient song to honor each contingent that once sailed from Hellas's distant shores. Agamemnon's 100 vessels bear the proud warriors of Mycenae and Argos, while Menelaus commands 60 ships filled with Lacedaemon's finest spearmen. Even absent Achilles' 50 black ships, crewed by his loyal Myrmidons, stand ready on the beach. The complete military might of Achaea masses upon Troy's wind-swept plain. Every name the poet speaks carries the weight of ancestral glory. Every ship represents homes abandoned, families sundered by the demands of honor and war. Across the battlefield, noble Hector rallies Troy's defenders alongside their far-flung allies, demonstrating that this conflict has truly become a clash between entire civilizations. Godlike Sarpedon, son of Zeus himself, leads his Lycian warriors, while Aeneas, born of the goddess Aphrodite's passionate union with mortal Anchises, commands the Dardanians. From the distant edges of the known world they have journeyed, Thracians and Phrygians, Paunians and Paphlagonians, all bound by sacred oaths to aid Priam's beleaguered city. As both armies surge toward each other across Troy's dusty plain, their burnished bronze armor catches the morning sun, creating a spectacle like the glittering scales of some immense serpent. The very earth quakes beneath the thunder of 10,000 feet. Towering clouds of dust billow skyward like smoke from a raging inferno, while the air vibrates with war cries shouted in a dozen different tongues. The sharp clash of bronze against bronze, and the drumming thunder of cavalry hooves pounding the hard-packed ground. High above on Olympus, the immortal gods and goddesses take their appointed places to witness the unfolding mortal drama of passion and fury, honor and vengeance, glory and inevitable death. Zeus, the cloud-gatherer, holds his golden scales of fate, prepared to weigh the destinies of heroes in the balance, while Gride Athena and golden Aphrodite exchange hostile glares across the divine assembly. Their ancient rivalry now poised to drench the Trojan plain in mortal blood. Apollo, the far-shooter, strings his silver bow with practiced ease. War-loving Eris hones his terrible spear to razor sharpness, And Poseidon, the earth-shaker, readies the very soil to drink deep from the veins of fallen heroes. Every element stands prepared for tragedy on an epic, world-shattering scale. Meanwhile, Peleus's mighty son broods beside his beached ships like a storm constrained by the most fragile of barriers. His legendary wrath has been kindled, but not yet unleashed to its full, devastating fury. Troy's proud walls still stand defiant against the siege, yet their doom hangs over them like a shadow. Soon their strength will face trials far beyond mere bronze weapons and mortared stone. From her high tower, Helen gazes down upon the gathering armies, beautiful beyond mortal measure, yet bearing a curse that has doomed thousands. She remains the cause of this catastrophic war, though she never chose to ignite it. Her very existence serves as a stark reminder that history's greatest conflagrations often spring from the simplest of human passions, corrupted and magnified by the capricious will of the divine powers. Upon the plain between the two great hosts, dust rises in golden clouds, marking the ground where heroes will soon fall and immortal legends will be forged in blood and bronze. The war that began with a golden apple and a beauty contest corrupted by divine vanity will now be decided through brutal combats, spear against shield, sword against flesh, and the inexorable grinding of fate's great wheel. 9 years of siege warfare and accumulated sorrows have led inexorably to this pivotal moment, and now the ultimate test commences. Not merely Achaean might against Trojan valor, but mortal pride set against divine purpose. Individual human will struggling against the relentless turning of destiny's wheel. The assembled armies stand poised like towering waves frozen at their crest, awaiting the storm that must break upon them. Part 2. Broken truces, burning rage as dawn breaks over the Trojan plain. The battle lines surge forward, bronze armor flashing like lightning under the rising sun, dust billowing in great clouds that mark the army's advance. But before blood can be spilled, fate intervenes through an unexpected voice. Paris himself, the prince whose actions ignited this catastrophic war. From the Trojan ranks steps Paris, his leopard skin cloak billowing dramatically behind him, twin spears gleaming in his grip. Despite 9 years of brutal siege, his legendary beauty remains untarnished. Yet something profound has shifted in those dark eyes, perhaps the unbearable weight of knowing that thousands have died because of his choices. With the same brazen confidence that once won Helen's heart, Paris issues a stunning challenge that echoes across the blood-soaked plain to Troy's ancient walls. Come forth, bravest of the Achaeans, face me in single combat for Helen and all her treasures. Let the gods themselves decide our fates, the victor claims all. While our peoples forge sacred oaths of lasting peace, the challenge strikes like a thunderbolt. Could this truly be it? The chance to end 9 agonizing years of slaughter with a single, honorable duel. But when Menelaus, the red-haired Spartan king, blazing with righteous fury in his bronze armor, steps forward to accept, Paris's courage evaporates like morning mist. The wronged husband's mere presence radiates vengeance. Here stands the man whose sacred hospitality was violated, whose wife was stolen, whose honor demands payment in blood. Paris recoils into the safety of his comrades, like a shepherd who has nearly trodden upon a deadly viper. His face drains to marble white, and his spears clatter from trembling hands. The shameful display ripples through the Trojan ranks, while the Achaeans erupt in mocking laughter. Even Helen, watching from Troy's highest tower, must feel her heart sink, witnessing her lover's cowardice. But Hector, noblest of Priam's sons and Troy's greatest defender, cannot stomach his brother's disgrace poisoning the army's morale. His rebuke cuts deeper than any enemy blade. Paris, you curse upon our house, beautiful to behold, but hollow within. I wish you had never been born, or had died unmarried before bringing this catastrophe upon us. Better death than standing as a coward before our enemies, an object of scorn and ridicule. Did you truly believe the Achaeans would call you mighty, simply because you possess a handsome face, when your heart holds no courage? When you sailed away in your ships, gathered foreign companions, and abducted a beautiful woman wedded to warriors, you became a living curse to our father, our city, our people. You are a source of joy only to our enemies, and shame to yourself. Hector's words strike Paris like physical blows, yet they ignite something within him that neither beauty nor love could kindle, the desperate courage of a man clinging to his final shred of honor. Brother, Paris replies, his voice gaining strength as resolve crystallizes within him. Your rebuke is just. I accept it without protest. Your heart is indeed like an axe cleaving through timber, never losing its edge. But do not mock Aphrodite's golden gifts. The immortal's glorious blessings cannot be refused, though mortals never choose them. If you wish me to fight this duel, command both armies to be seated. Set me and war-loving Menelaus to face each other in the space between, fighting for Helen and all her possessions. Whoever proves victorious takes everything the woman, the treasure, and leads her home. Let the rest swear binding oaths of friendship and peace. The proposal spreads through both armies like wildfire. Here at last is the solution wise men have dreamed of for 9 long years. Let the guilty parties settle accounts while sparing the innocent thousands who have bled for their quarrel. Hector strides into no man's land, his great spear held horizontally to restrain the eager ranks, while heralds race to summon the kings. In Troy's loftiest tower, Helen sits among her handmaidens, weaving an immense purple tapestry depicting the very battles fought on her account. Footsteps approach the goddess Eris, disguised as Helen's sister-in-law Laodice, bringing momentous news. Her husband and lover will finally face each other in mortal combat. Come quickly, dear sister, the disguised goddess whispers urgently. Witness this marvel. The Trojans and bronze-armored Achaeans, who moments ago clashed in sorrowful battle, now sit in perfect silence. The fighting has ceased. They lean upon their shields, their spears planted in the earth. Paris and red-haired Menelaus, beloved of Eris, will duel with long spears for you. You shall be called the cherished wife of whoever conquers. Helen's heart floods with longing, sharp as a dagger's point, not for Paris or Menelaus, but for her former life, her home in Sparta, her parents, her daughter, Hermione, left behind. The divine messenger has planted sweet, painful homesickness in her breast. Wrapping herself in silver-white linen, tears streaming down her face, Helen hastens to the Sion gates with 2 handmaidens. Their Troy's elders perch like ancient cicadas, their voices soft with age. When they behold the world's most beautiful woman ascending the tower steps, they cannot help but murmur among themselves. Small wonder that Trojans and Achaeans have endured such prolonged suffering for such a woman. She is terrifyingly like the immortal goddesses to look upon. Even so beautiful as she is, let her depart in the ships rather than remain here as a curse to us and our children's children. Yet King Priam calls Helen to his side with gentle words. Come here, dear daughter, sit beside me, so you may see your former husband, your kinsmen and friends. I do not blame you, blame the gods who brought this tearful war upon us. Tell me, who is that massive warrior among the Achaeans, so noble and imposing? Others may stand taller, but I have never seen one so beautiful or so regal. Surely he must be a king. Thus begins the Tychoscopy, the viewing from the walls as Helen identifies the heroes for Troy's king. That is Agamemnon, son of Atreus, wide-ruling king of men, she says, her voice heavy with memory. Both an excellent king and a mighty warrior. He was my husband's brother, shameless creature that I am. If that life was ever truly mine. Priam marvels at the vast host of ships and men assembled for one woman's sake. And who is that other warrior? Priam inquires. Shorter than Agamemnon, but broader in shoulders and chest. His armor rests upon the ground, yet he moves through the ranks like a ram among sheep. Helen's expression softens slightly. That is Odysseus, son of Laertes, raised on rocky Ithaca. He masters all manner of cunning stratagems and clever plans. Wise Antenor, seated beside the king, recalls when Odysseus came to Troy as an envoy before the war. When he stood to speak, he seemed a man without eloquence. But when he unleashed his mighty voice and words fell like winter snowflakes, no mortal could match the son of Laertes. One by one, Helen names the legendary heroes. Ajax the Great, towering like a god among the Achaeans. Idomeneus of Crete, standing among his captains like an Olympian deity. But when Priam asks about her own brothers, Castor the horse-tamer, and Polydeuces, the boxer, Helen searches for faces that will never appear. She does not know they already lie dead in Lacedaemon, held fast by the life-giving earth. The cruel irony hangs unspoken in the air. Meanwhile, the sacred oaths are prepared with solemn ritual. Agamemnon and Priam meet in no man's land between the armies as priests bring forth the sacrificial lambs and wine for libation. Priam's hands tremble not from cowardice, but from the crushing weight of destiny itself. Everything hangs in balance. Troy's survival, his son's life, 9 years of bloodshed possibly ending or continuing. All depends on two warriors' strength and the gods' will. Agamemnon raises the great bronze knife, cuts wool from the lambs' heads, and distributes it among the assembled princes. Then, lifting his hands toward heaven, he speaks the binding oath. Father Zeus, who rules from Ida, most glorious and greatest, Son who sees and hears all things, rivers and earth, and you who dwell beneath, punishing the dead who break their vows, witness these oaths. If Paris kills Menelaus, let him keep Helen and all her treasures, and we Achaeans shall sail home. But if golden-haired Menelaus slays Paris, then Troy must surrender Helen with all her possessions and pay fitting tribute that men will remember for generations to come. The lambs are slaughtered, their blood staining the earth, dark as both armies silently pray for the same outcome, that this day might end the war, that no more young men need perish for an old quarrel between princes. Yet, even as these sacred words echo across the plain, the immortals on Olympus weave different plans. The duel begins with ancient ceremony. Hector and Odysseus pace out the ground and shake lots in a bronze helmet to determine who casts first. Paris wins his luck, as always, better than his courage. Both armies settle onto the ground in orderly ranks, shields and spears planted beside them, while the two champions arm themselves in the space between. Paris straps gleaming greaves to his legs with silver ankle clasps. Dan's his brother, Lycaon's corselet fitted to his own frame, and slings his silver-studded sword across his shoulders. He lifts his massive shield, sets a horsehair-crested helmet upon his head, and finally grasps his sturdy spear. Menelaus arms himself with equal care, his bronze blazing like fire in the morning light. His rage has aged 9 years into something cold and absolute, no longer the hot fury of a betrayed husband, but the settled resolve of a king who has watched thousands die for his honor. When both champions stand ready, they stride into the measured ground, their eyes terrible to behold, while all the seated warriors watch in awe. Paris, having won the lot, hurls his long-shadowed spear first. The bronze point strikes Menelaus's shield squarely, but cannot pierce it. The spear tip bends back like lead against the shield's divine craftsmanship. Now Menelaus lifts his weapon, praying to Zeus. Father Zeus, grant me vengeance against him who wronged me first. Subdue Paris beneath my hand, so that men for generations hence will fear to betray a host's kindness. His spear flies true, punching through Paris's glittering shield and intricate corselet. By a hair's breadth, Paris twists aside, but the bronze tears his tunic and draws blood. Menelaus draws his silver-studded sword and charges with a battle cry. The blade shatters against Paris's helmet crest, fragments falling from his hands. Desperate, Menelaus seizes Paris by his horsehair plume and begins dragging him toward the Achaean lines. The richly embroidered chinstrap bites into Paris's throat, strangling him. Victory appears certain. Wild cheering erupts from the Achaean ranks. Finally, justice, the war's end. Helen restored, but Aphrodite, watching her beloved's defeat with mounting alarm, refuses to let her champion die so shamefully. Invisible to mortal eyes, she snaps the chinstrap and whisks Paris away in a cloud of mist, bearing him safely to his perfumed chamber in Troy's palace. The golden goddess, terrible in her beauty, pitiless in her love, then seeks Helen at the tower, disguised as an elderly woolwoman who once served her in Sparta. Aphrodite materializes beside Helen. "Come," she commands, voice honeyed yet imperious. "Paris calls for you." He awaits in his chamber, radiant in beauty and fine dress. You'd never guess he'd been fighting. He looks as if heading to a dance, or just finished dancing and now resting. Helen recognizes the goddess instantly, despite her disguise. The beautiful neck, lovely breasts, sparkling eyes betray her. Terror and fury battle in Helen's heart as she responds. "Strange divinity, why do you deceive me so? Will you carry me even farther away to some distant city of Phrygia or Maeonia, where you found another mortal man to cherish? Is it because Menelaus has now defeated godlike Paris and wishes to take wretched me back home that you stand here scheming? Go sit beside Paris yourself. Abandon the ways of immortals. Never return to Olympus. Forever fret over him and guard him until he makes you his wife, for perhaps his slave. I will not go. Sharing his bed would be shameful." But the goddess's wrath blazes terribly. Her immortal eyes flash with divine fire as she threatens. "Do not provoke me, reckless woman, lest in my anger I abandon you and hate you as fiercely as I now love you, and lest I weave bitter enmities between both Trojans and Greeks alike, and you perish miserably." Helen, the world's most beautiful woman, trembles before the immortal's fury and goes silently to her lover's chamber, her serving women trailing behind. There she finds Paris, more radiant than ever in his defeat, reclining on his ornate bed, as though nothing had transpired. Her words scorch him with contempt and shame. So you have returned from battle. Would that you had died there, vanquished by that mighty warrior who was once my husband. You used to boast that you surpassed Menelaus, Sparta's war-loving king, in spearwork and the strength of your hands. Go now challenge him again to single combat, but I counsel you to cease, lest you fall swiftly beneath his spear. The shepherd prince, shameless in his cowardice, reaches for her with honeyed words. Wife, do not wound my heart with harsh reproaches. This time Menelaus conquered with Athena's aid, but another day I shall prevail. We too have gods who favor us. Come now, let us find pleasure in love's embrace. Never before has desire so consumed my heart, not even when I first carried you from lovely Sparta, and we lay together on the Isle of Crani. Even more than then do I burn for you now, and sweet longing overwhelms me. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the Spartan king prowls like a wounded beast through both armies, hunting the man who vanished like morning mist. The Greeks search desperately, but Paris has disappeared as though he never existed. Even the Trojans, who support him, not for courage, but for Priam's sake, would gladly surrender him if they could find him. He is loathed by all like Black Death itself. Agamemnon, recognizing that the duel's outcome is unmistakable despite divine meddling, addresses both armies with royal authority. Hear me, Trojans, Dardanians, and allies. Victory clearly belongs to war-loving Menelaus. Therefore, surrender Helen of Argos with all her possessions, and pay such recompense as is fitting compensation that men will remember for generations to come. His words drift across the plain like sacrificial smoke, and for one breathless moment it seems the war might truly end. Both armies wait in tense silence, watching their leaders, hoping desperately that 9 years of carnage might conclude with honor satisfied and oaths fulfilled. But the immortal gods have woven different destinies. On Mount Olympus, Zeus speaks words that will shatter the fragile peace like bronze against stone. Hera and Athena champion Menelaus. The cloud gatherer observes to the assembled deities. Yet they sit apart, taking pleasure in watching, while laughter-loving Aphrodite constantly stands beside Paris, shielding him from doom and now rescuing him when he faced certain death. But since victory belongs to war-loving Menelaus, let us deliberate how these matters shall proceed, whether we should reignite evil war and the dreadful clash of battle, or establish friendship between both sides. If this course would be welcome and pleasing to all, then King Priam's city might remain inhabited, and Menelaus would bear Helen of Argos home. The suggestion ignites cold fury in Athena and Hera, these goddesses who have despised Troy since Paris's judgment now see their vengeance slipping away. Athena, her gray eyes blazing with divine wrath, volunteers for a mission that will doom thousands. Father, do not render my labors vain and fruitless, the toil I endured when my horses grew weary from assembling the host against Priam and his sons. Do as you wish, but know that we other immortals do not all approve. Zeus, bound by his promise to Thetis, yet seeking to placate his wife and daughter, grants Athena permission to shatter the truce, go swiftly to the armies of Trojans and Greeks, and contrive to make the Trojans first violate their oaths and bring harm upon the glorious Greeks. The command is all the war goddess requires, like a blazing star that Zeus hurls from heaven as an omen to sailors or vast armies of men. Brilliant and showering sparks in every direction, Athena streaks downward and plunges into the midst of the troops. Wonder seizes both armies as they witness the divine fire arc across the sky, and warriors murmur among themselves. Either there will be bitter war again, and the dreadful din of battle, or Zeus is establishing friendship between both sides, he who dispenses war among mortals. Athena, disguised as Laodocus, son of Antenor, searches through the Trojan ranks until she locates Pandarus, son of Lycaon, a skilled archer whose bow was crafted from the horns of a wild ibex he himself had slain. The goddess materializes beside him with treacherous, honeyed words. "Would you heed my counsel, wise son of Lycaon Den? Would you dare to loose a swift arrow at Menelaus? You would win favor and glory from all the Trojans, and especially from Prince Paris. From him above all would you receive magnificent gifts if he should see war-loving Menelaus struck down by your arrow and laid upon the sorrowful funeral pyre. Come then, shoot an arrow at glorious Menelaus, but vow to Apollo, the wolf-born lord of archery, that you will sacrifice a glorious hecatomb of firstling lambs when you return home to the city of sacred Zelia." The foolish Pandarus heeds Athena's counsel, sealing his own doom and that of his people. He uncovers his polished bow and strings it, then selects his finest arrow, black with pain and suffering yet to come. In secret, concealed by his companions' shields, he draws the bowstring to his breast and the iron arrowhead to the bow. When the great curved bow is drawn into a full circle, the bow sings and the arrow flies, eager to reach its mark. But you, Menelaus, were not forsaken by the blessed immortals. Athena herself, who had instigated the treachery, now stands before you to deflect the deadly arrow. As a mother brushes a fly from her sleeping child, so the goddess turns the shaft aside. She guides it to where the golden buckles of his belt meet, where the doubled corselet offers protection. The arrow strikes the fitted belt and pierces through the intricate corselet and the guard he wore beneath to shield his flesh. This served him best as a barrier against the bronze. Even so, the arrow grazes his skin, and dark blood flows from the wound. As when a woman stains ivory with crimson dicem, Maeonian or Carian craftswoman, creating a cheek-piece for horse's end. It lies in a chamber while many horsemen long to possess it, but it is preserved as a prize for a king, both an ornament for his horse and a glory for the charioteervan. So, Menelaus, were your shapely thighs stained with blood, and your legs beneath, and your handsome ankles. The sight of blood streaming from their king strikes terror into the Greek ranks, while savage joy surges through the Trojans. But when Menelaus sees that the wound is shallow, the bronze point having barely broken skin, his courage returns, like wind filling a sail. Still, Agamemnon groans when he sees the dark blood, and war-loving Menelaus himself groans as well. The king's lament echoes across the plain as he clasps his brother's hand. "Dear brother, it was your death I sealed in making this covenant, setting you alone before the Greeks to fight the Trojans. So the Trojans have struck you down and trampled upon the sacred oaths. Yet the oath and the blood of lambs and the unmixed wine and the right hands in which we placed our trust shall not prove meaningless. If the Olympian does not fulfill them now, he will fulfill them later, and they shall pay a terrible price with their own heads and their wives and children. For I know this truth in my heart and soul. The day will come when sacred Troy shall fall, and Priam and the people of Priam of the mighty ash spear shall perish." The words resound with prophetic power, and across the field, Trojans and allies feel a chill touch their hearts despite their momentary triumph. The oaths have been violated, the blood spilled, And now the war that might have ended must rage on until one side or the other lies in ruins beneath the unforgiving sky. The arrow's treachery shatters the morning peace like bronze striking stone. Part 3. Divine Wrath and Mortal Defiance. Moments ago, solemn oaths hung heavy in the air, and a fragile hope flickered. Perhaps 9 years of relentless bloodshed could finally end. But now crimson blood spreads across Menelaus's thigh, and with it spreads an iron certainty. This war will not conclude with treaties and handshakes. The sight of their king's blood staining the earth ignites a roaring fury throughout the Achaean ranks. While across the battlefield, Troy's defenders feel cold dread settling in their bones. Pandarus's treacherous arrow has sealed their doom. Agamemnon's voice thunders across the plain like Zeus himself, his words heavy with prophecy and vengeance. The sacred oaths lie shattered. Innocent blood cries out for justice. Zeus, keeper of oaths, will never let such treachery go unpunished. Troy's mighty walls may delay our triumph, but they cannot prevent destiny. The day approaches when sacred Ilium will fall, when Priam and all his people will pay the blood price for this faithless betrayal. War erupts anew with the inexorable force of an avalanche. Warriors who moments earlier rested peacefully on the earth now leap to their feet, bronze weapons singing as spears rise and shields lock into formation. Careful battle lines dissolve and reform as commanders roar orders and the vast machinery of war grinds relentlessly forward. Yet, amid the chaos of thousands arming for slaughter, one warrior blazes like a comet across the battlefield. Diomedes, son of Tydeus, his eyes burning with superhuman fury. The young lord of Argos has been chosen by destiny and Athena herself to become this day's avatar of divine retribution. As the armies collide between Troy's towering walls and the Achaean ships, this champion carves through enemy ranks like wildfire through drought-stricken timber. Each thrust of his spear finds its mark. His sword chants its bronze hymn of death. Before him, Troy's defenders recoil in horror and disbelief. Phegeus, son of Dares, who serves as priest to Hephaestus, falls first beneath Diomedes's onslaught. The confident young warrior drives his chariot directly at Tydeus's son, trusting in divine protection. But the Achaean spear punches through his breastplate as easily as piercing cloth. His horses panic and bolt, dragging the corpse behind them, while Phegeus's brother, Idaeus, abandons chariot and armor alike, fleeing to preserve his life. The carnage intensifies as divine fire courses through Diomedes's veins. Astinus crumples beneath his spear. Hyperon follows, then Abas, then Polyidus, names remembered only for the manner of their deaths. The champion's Aristeus moment of supreme glory transforms him into something beyond mortal, yet beneath godhood, a terrifying figure that drives panic through enemy ranks like gale winds through wheat. But Troy possesses champions of its own. Aeneas, son of the goddess Aphrodite and noble Anchises, witnesses the spreading massacre and understands that only divine blood can withstand this rampage. Born from the union of goddess and mortal prince, heir to Dardanus's ancient bloodline, Aeneas embodies Troy's last desperate hope. He seeks out Pandarus, the fool whose arrow destroyed the peace, and together they drive their chariot toward the raging Argive lord. The confrontation explodes with the crash of bronze on bronze. Pandarus hurls his spear first, the point striking Diomedes's shield and piercing through to wound his shoulder. The archer shouts in triumph, "Drive forward, great-hearted Trojans, their greatest warrior, bleeds, and I believe he cannot long endure my bitter arrow if truly Lord Apollo sent me forth from Lyphia. But the wound only fans Diomedes's fury to greater heights. He prays to Athena, and she responds by flooding his limbs with supernatural strength and clearing the mortal mist from his eyes so he can distinguish immortal from human on the blood-soaked field. The goddess whispers deadly counsel: fight without fear, even against the deathless gods themselves. Save only Zeus, the thunderer. Strike down any who oppose you, even if they call Olympus home. Thus begins the most audacious episode in all the war's tales, a mortal warrior's assault upon heaven's immortal powers. When Aeneas charges forward, trusting his divine heritage for protection, Diomedes meets him with a massive boulder one that would require 2 men of later ages to lift. The stone crushes the hero's hip, sending him crashing to earth. Only Aphrodite's swift intervention saves her son from death's embrace. The goddess of love, delicate hands, trembling with terror, lifts her wounded child and begins bearing him from the carnage. But Diomedes, maddened by battle fury and emboldened by Athena's promise, pursues even Zeus's immortal daughter. His spear tears through her divine flesh near the wrist, and golden ichor flows the sacred blood of celestial beings who have never known mortality or pain. Aphrodite's shriek of agony reverberates across earth and heaven alike. She drops Aeneas and flees toward Olympus, clutching her wounded hand to her breast, while her son lies helpless on the blood-drenched ground. But Apollo, lord of the silver bow, refuses to let his fellow deity's child perish. He shrouds Aeneas in dark mist and spirits him away to his sacred temple on Troy's citadel, where Leto and Artemis tend the hero's grievous wounds. Meanwhile, the wounded goddess seeks comfort from her divine parents on high Olympus. She flies, weeping, to Zeus, displaying her wounded hand and voicing her anguish. Father, Diomedes, in his madness, has wounded me. He would dare fight even you if someone urged him on. First, he struck godlike Aeneas, my beloved son. When I tried saving the child from death, he turned his ruthless bronze against me. Were I not immortal, I would lie among the heaps of corpses, like any mortal struck down in their pride. But Zeus, the cloud-gatherer, shows scant sympathy for his daughter's suffering. His words carry the weight of cosmic law and ages of stern wisdom. Do not come weeping to me, child, about your sufferings in battle. War and violence are not your domain. Yours are the sweet works of marriage and desire. Leave combat's bitter business to swift Eris and Athena, who understand its savage ways. On the battlefield below, Diomedes continues his rampage, though Apollo himself now stands sentinel over where Aeneas fell. 3 times Tydeus' son charges forward to claim the wounded hero's armor. 3 times the far-shooter beats him back with his silver shield. But when the mortal warrior attempts a 4th assault, the immortal's voice thunders across the plain. Think carefully, son of Tydeus, and withdraw. Do not seek to match your mortal will against the deathless ones. The race of immortal gods and earth-walking mortals can never be the same. Even Diomedes, for all his divine support, recognizes the wisdom in those words. He retreats a spear's throw, allowing Apollo to work his healing magic on Aeneas. But the immortal creates a phantom image of the hero to occupy both armies' attention while spiriting the real Aeneas to safety. Around this false apparition, the greatest champions of both armies continue their deadly dance. Now, Ares himself, bronze-armored lord of slaughter, enters the fray at Apollo's urging. The war god assumes the form of Acamas, leader of the Thracians, and his voice rings out to rally Troy's defenders. Sons of Priam, how long will you watch your people slaughtered by the Achaeans? Will you wait until they batter down our very gates? Aeneas lies wounded, he whom we honored equal to godlike Hector. Come, let us rescue our noble comrade from this chaos. The gods' words kindle fresh courage in hearts exhausted by long warfare. Sarpedon, divine son of Zeus, who leads the Lycian contingent, seeks out Hector and reproaches him with stinging words. Hector, where has your courage fled? You once boasted you could hold this city with only your kinsmen and brothers-in-law, without allies or foreign help. But now I see none of them. They cower like dogs before a lion. We allies must bear the heavy fighting. I have journeyed from distant Lycia, from the banks of swirling Xanthus, leaving behind my dear wife, infant son, and vast possessions that the needy covet. Yet still I urge my Lycians forward, and eagerly seek single combat with any warrior. Though I possess nothing here the Achaeans might plunder. But you merely stand idle, and fail even to urge your people to make their stand and defend their wives and children. Sarpedon's words cut through Hector like a blade through silk. Troy's greatest defender knows the Lycian speaks truth. He has commanded with caution. When his people cry out for a champion's fire in his chest, shame and duty clash like armies meeting on the field, and duty emerges victorious. He vaults from his war chariot, twin spears gleaming in his fists, and strides among his warriors on foot. His voice a rallying cry that ignites courage in every Trojan heart. The battle becomes a living thing, breathing and pulsing as advantage shifts like sand beneath the warrior's feet. High on Olympus, Zeus holds golden scales aloft, measuring the destinies of mortals below. First, the Achaeans press forward, then the defenders surge back, divine will and human courage swirling together like wine and water in an ancient crater. Champions from both armies write their names in blood. When Tlepolemus, bearing the mighty blood of Heracles himself, challenges Sarpedon to single combat, both men strike true. The son of Zeus drives his spear through the Achaean's thigh, sending him to the dust. Yet Heracles' son's final thrust pierces the Lycian's shoulder, a wound that will throb with pain long after this day ends. The slaughter threatens to paint the plains crimson until the sun drowns in its own red horizon. But Athena of the gray eyes perceives what mortal warriors cannot. The god of war himself strides among Troy's ranks, his immortal strength turning the tide against the Achaeans. She knows no amount of human valor can prevail against such divine intervention. Swift as lightning across a summer sky, she descends to where Diomedes battles on, his armor still stained with the golden ichor of Aphrodite. Son of Tydeus, the goddess whispers, her words dripping with honeyed death. Why do you hesitate before Eris himself? Allow me to guide your spear arm and command your chariot horses. Cast aside all fear of that raging storm god, that fickle destroyer who swore sacred oaths to Hera and myself that he would champion the Achaean cause, yet now betrays us to fight alongside our enemies. The warrior goddess seizes the leather reins and drives the chariot straight toward the bronze-clad immortal. Eris spots their approach and abandons his current prey, hurling his spear with the force of a thunderbolt at Diomedes. But Athena's divine hand sweeps the weapon harmlessly aside. Now Tydeus' son counterattacks, his spear driving forward. With Athena directing the point, The bronze finds its mark, where the war god's belt clasps his armor, and the blade bites deep into immortal flesh. Eris' scream of agony reverberates across earth and Skya sound like 10,000 warriors howling in the chaos of battle. Both armies collapse to the ground in primal terror at that unholy shriek, and the wounded deity flees toward Mount Olympus faster than the north wind, trailing his divine essence like storm clouds in his wake. Upon reaching Zeus' palace, he voices bitter complaints about Athena's interference, only to receive icy indifference from his father, who has never loved his son's insatiable hunger for bloodshed and chaos. With both Aphrodite and Ares withdrawn from the mortal plane, Fortune's scales tip dramatically toward the Achaean forces. Diomedes and his battle brothers seize this divine advantage, driving the defenders back toward Troy's towering walls in a torrent of bronze and blood. The city gates reverberate with the desperate cries of women and children as rumors spread that the enemy approaches, that even Troy's legendary walls may crumble before this god-blessed onslaught. Yet, as afternoon shadows stretch long and the sun begins its westward journey toward distant mountain peaks, even the greatest Achaean champion feels mortality's burden settle upon him once more. The divine flames Athena kindled in his veins gradually dim, leaving him formidable still, but no longer the semi-divine terror who struck down immortals. He steps back from the front lines, yielding leadership to fresh heroes, secure in the knowledge that bards will sing of this day's glory for countless generations. The first day of renewed combat concludes without clear victor. The Achaeans have advanced closer to Troy's gates than ever before, yet the city remains defiant and unconquered. The defenders have witnessed their champions wounded and their divine guardians driven from the battlefield. Still, they survive, and with survival comes hope for tomorrow's redemption. As night descends and funeral pyres begin their grim work consuming the day's dead, both armies tally the terrible price of shattered oaths and broken peace. Atop Troy's walls, Hector gazes across the darkening plain at countless Achaean campfires scattered like fallen stars, understanding that far greater ordeals await. Beyond those distant flames, Achilles remains in self-imposed exile beside his black ships, his legendary rage still burning, his death-dealing spear still unused. The ultimate reckoning approaches, and when that day arrives, neither mortal strength nor divine favor may suffice to turn aside the doom hanging over Troy like thunderclouds, pregnant with destruction. Night winds carry funeral smoke across the blood-soaked plain, mingling Achaean and Trojan ashes until death's great equalizer makes all men indistinguishable. Tomorrow promises fresh carnage, new heroes ascending to glory, perhaps the beginning of the end for one army or the other. But tonight, in this brief sanctuary between one day's butchery and the next, even the mightiest warriors must rest. Even heroes must surrender to sleep and dream of beloved homes they may never see again. Part 4. Nightfall, Espionage, and the breaking point as twilight descends like a bronze shield sinking beyond the western peaks. The Trojan plain transforms into a canvas of crimson and amber. Darkness unfurls across the battlefield like a funeral shroud, while both armies tally their devastating losses. Along the wind-swept shore, Achaean campfires scatter like stars fallen to earth, while Troy's towering ramparts rise black against the constellations' studded heavens, sheltering defenders who nurse both physical wounds and fading hopes. Within the Achaean council tent, torchlight flickers across the weathered faces of Hellas's mightiest kings. They gather in somber assembly, shoulders weighted by mounting casualties. Agamemnon, son of Atreus and supreme commander, stands before his war council, his once unshakable authority now diminished by the day's reversals. Where confidence once rang in his proclamations of certain triumph, now only the acrid flavor of desperation remains. Friends, leaders, rulers of the Achaeans, the High King's voice trembles with barely suppressed dread. Zeus, son of Cronos, has ensnared me in terrible delusion. That cruel deity once pledged with divine oath that I would raise well-fortified Troy before seeing home again. Yet now he weaves treacherous deception, commanding my shameful retreat to Argos after watching countless warriors perish. Such, it appears, pleases almighty Zeusi, who has toppled countless citadels and shall topple many more, for his dominion exceeds all others. His words land like warhammer blows upon the assembled champions. Hearing their supreme leader speak of withdrawal, of forsaking 9 years of spilled blood and bitter sacrifice, floods their hearts with dismay. Yet none can refute the harsh truth underlying his fierce Troy's defenders strengthen daily while Achaean ranks thin like harvested wheat. Then Diomedes rises, still radiant from his god-touched exploits, speaking words that reignite hope in hearts grown cold with doubt. Son of Atreus, I shall be first to challenge your foolishness, as is my rightful privilege in assembly. Do not take offense. You yourself dishonored my valor before the Danaans, branding me cowardly and feeble. Whether truth or falsehood, every Achaean witnessed your words. Cronos's cunning son granted you but half a blessing, the scepter's honor above all mortals, yet denied you courage, which surpasses all earthly power. Remarkable man, do you truly believe the sons of Achaea are spineless weaklings? If your heart yearns for home, then depart. The path lies clear. Your numerous ships from Mycenae await at the shoreline, but the remaining long-haired Achaeans shall persist until Troy's gates shatter. Should they too flee homeward in their vessels, Sthenelus and I shall continue fighting until we achieve Troy's conquest. For heaven's blessing guided us here. The young warrior's defiance ignites courage throughout the gathering like flame-consuming dry kindling. One after another, Achaea's greatest champions rise to pledge their unwavering commitment. Ajax the Great speaks of honor that cannot be surrendered. Odysseus weaves eloquent wisdom about retreat's folly when victory might dawn tomorrow. Even ancient Nestor, whose sage counsel has guided 2 generations of warriors, adds his voice to this chorus, demanding renewed determination. As the council dissolves and heroes return to their ships, night brings no respite to either force. In the shadowy expanse between opposing camps, sinister schemes take form. Fear has driven the Achaeans to desperation, and desperate commanders embrace desperate strategies. The hunger for intelligence burns feverishly in their minds. They must penetrate Troy's plans, expose her vulnerabilities, uncover some advantage to shift fortune's balance. Deep in night's darkest hours, Agamemnon summons his most trusted captains. Oil lamps cast dancing shadows across the tent walls as he unveils his scheme. We require eyes and ears penetrating enemy territory. Someone must breach their defenses, discover their strategies, perhaps deliver a strike shattering their confidence. His gaze settles upon 2 figures who have never disappointed him when missions demand equal measures of courage and cunning. Diomedes, son of Tydeus, advances first, his youthful features set with grim determination. Beside him stands Odysseus, Ithaca's cunning fox, whose mind spins intricate webs of strategy like a master spider. Together they embody the perfect fusion divine blessed prowess and mortal ingenuity. The blade and the subtle word combined to achieve what armies cannot. We accept this mission, the Achaean champion declares, his voice unwavering as tempered bronze. Yet we journey not merely as spies, but as harbingers of Troy's doom. Should fortune smile upon us, we shall return bearing far more than intelligence. His companion nods, already crafting layered contingencies, perceiving opportunities invisible to lesser strategists. They equip themselves under darkness's cloak, prioritizing concealment over grandeur. Gone are the gleaming bronze breastplates and towering plumed helmets, marking them as battlefield nobility. Instead, they don shadowy cloaks and silent soft-soled boots, bear daggers rather than spears, transform from heroes into phantoms. The metamorphosis completes when Odysseus dons a leather cap, reinforced with boar's tusks, a treasured gift from his grandfather Autolycus, legendary master of thieves and tricksters. Night devours them as they slip from Achaean encampments like hunting wolves. Behind them, comrades settle into troubled slumber, their dreams haunted by visions of defeat and disgrace. Ahead sprawls the enemy encampment, where Trojan allies maintain their own vigilance against precisely such infiltrations. But desperation grips the defenders equally. Within a tent, among Troy's allied forces, young Dolan, son of Eumedes, strikes his own bargain with destiny. This youth possesses no warriors, build slender and fleet-footed, rather than broad-shouldered, better suited for carrying messages than waging combat. Yet ambition blazes fiercely within his breast. He has heard King Hector's tantalizing promise: whoever penetrates the Achaean stronghold and returns with strategic intelligence shall claim Achilles' immortal horses as reward. For one of humble origins, this offer transcends mortal dreams. Those divine stallions, celestial gifts from the gods themselves, represent far more than mere conveyance. They symbolize heroic glory incarnate, prizes elevating their possessor to legendary status. Dolan envisions himself driving those magnificent creatures through Troy's streets, while throngs roar his name in celebration. He imagines poets composing epic verses of his exploit. He glimpses a future radiant with unimaginable honor, wrapping himself in a wolf's gray pelt, its fur rendering him nearly invisible against darkness. He ventures alone into the night. His mission mirrors his enemies: to spy, gather intelligence, return bearing secrets that might tip war's balance. Yet where the Argive heroes advance with born killers' confidence, the young Trojan proceeds with the anxious energy of one venturing far beyond his element. In the darkness between the camps, two missions converge like destined rivers, flowing toward the same fateful sea. Odysseus, master of cunning, spots the lone figure, first his battle-hardened instincts, catching movement where silence should reign. A swift signal passes between the Greek heroes, and they dissolve into shadow, becoming hunters stalking their prey. The pursuit ends with brutal swiftness. Dolan, despite his renowned speed, cannot escape men propelled by divine purpose and desperate resolve. They trap him in a dry riverbed, Diomedes' spear pressing against his throat, while Odysseus prepares to extract every secret from the trembling Trojan spy. "Spare me," the young scout begs, his voice breaking with terror. "My father Eumedes possesses great wealth, bronze, gold, and wrought iron beyond measure. He will ransom me with treasures beyond counting." but his captors' faces remain carved from stone. They have not ventured into enemy territory for gold, but for intelligence that might turn the tide of war. Under relentless interrogation, fear unlocks Dolan's tongue. He reveals Hector's battle plans for the morning assault, discloses the precise positions of Troy's allied forces, and describes the enemy camp's layout with such detail that any commander would rejoice. But his most valuable revelation concerns the Thracian reinforcements who arrived after nightfall. King Rhesus and his warriors, encamped separately from the main Trojan force, protected only by exhaustion and misplaced confidence. Rhesus arrived from Thrace today. Dolan babbles, terror, severing his final threads of caution. His horses surpass any I have witnessed, whiter than snow, swifter than wind itself. His chariot gleams with gold and silver, and his armor blazes with such magnificence it seems to divine for mortal warriors. But hear this prophecy: should his horses drink from the river Xanthus and graze upon Troy's plain, the city shall never fall to Greek spears. This intelligence strikes the Greek heroes like Zeus's own thunderbolt. Here lies opportunity exceeding their most ambitious hopes, not merely information, but the chance to strike a blow that could save their entire expedition. If this prophecy holds truth, preventing those sacred horses from drinking Trojan water becomes more vital than any battlefield victory. They waste no precious moments debating. Diomedes draws his blade with practiced efficiency, and young Dolan's severed head tumbles into the dust, his dreams of glory and Achilles' divine horses ending in blood and darkness. The killing carries no hatred, no unnecessary cruelty, only war's cold mathematics, which transforms civilized men into predators and makes murder an instrument of survival. With their intelligence source permanently silenced, the two Greek champions turn toward the Thracian encampment. They advance like death given form, shadows moving with deadly purpose toward unsuspecting victims. Behind them, Dolan's blood darkens the Trojan earth, while his spirit descends to Hades' realm, his wolf-pelt disguise now grimly prophetic. The Thracian camp rests in fatal ignorance of approaching doom. King Rhesus sleeps surrounded by his warriors, his magnificent white horses tethered nearby, their pale coats luminous beneath starlight. Journey weariness has bred carelessness among his men. Sentries drowse at their posts. Weapons lie carelessly stacked, and the atmosphere speaks of soldiers who believe themselves distant from danger. When death arrives, it comes silent and swift as plague itself. Diomedes moves through the sleeping warriors like a shadow of doom, his sword drinking deeply with each stroke. 12 Thracian warriors perish without waking, their throats opened before dreams can transform into final nightmares. Beside him, Odysseus works with equal deadly efficiency, his dagger finding hearts with surgeon's precision, while his hands muffle any sound that might rouse the sleeping camp. Rhesus himself dies as he lived surrounded by splendor, yet powerless against fate's decree. The Thracian king's golden armor offers no defense against Greek bronze, driven by divine favor and mortal desperation. His final sight reveals strange faces looming through darkness, foreign warriors, whose very presence ensures his prophecies will never reach fulfillment. But the legendary horses represent the true prize. These magnificent creatures, white as fresh fallen snow and swift as storm winds, embody far more than mere transportation. They are the key to Troy's prophesied survival, living vessels of divine favor that must never taste Trojan waters. Odysseus leads them away with gentle words and expert horsemanship, while Diomedes gathers the fallen king's golden armor as proof of their night's work. Their retreat through enemy territory proves as dangerous as their infiltration. Troy's camp begins stirring with first hints of discovery. A sentry's challenge pierces the darkness. Alarm cries multiply. The hunt begins even as the hunters vanish into shadow. But fortune favors the bold and the brave, and both Greek heroes reach their own lines just as dawn's rosy fingers touch the eastern horizon. Their triumphant return transforms the Greek expedition's entire mood. Where despair had taken deep root, hope now blossoms like spring grass after winter rains. The captured divine horses become symbols of renewed possibility, while Rhesus's golden armor serves as tangible proof that even Troy's mightiest allies can be humbled by Greek courage and cunning. Yet victory achieved in darkness does not guarantee triumph in daylight. As the sun climbs higher and both armies form their battle lines once more, the fundamental realities of siege warfare remain stubbornly unchanged. Troy's mighty walls still stand unconquered. Her brave defenders still draw breath. And the greatest warrior of all, Achilles, son of Peleus, still broods beside his black ships. His terrible combat prowess withheld from the common Greek cause. The day's fighting unfolds with grim, familiar rhythm. Heroes clash in epic single combat, while vast armies surge back and forth across the blood-soaked Trojan plain. Wounds are inflicted and endured. Courageous warriors fall to feed the hungry earth, and poets gather material for songs that will outlive both the singers and the sung. Yet, despite all the thunderous sound and fury, neither side can claim decisive advantage. As evening approaches once more, both exhausted armies withdraw to tend their wounds and tally their mounting losses. The Greeks have gained valuable intelligence and struck a significant psychological blow, yet they remain as distant from final victory as ever. Troy's defenders have lost precious allies and face the bitter knowledge that Greek raiders can penetrate even their heartland, yet their walls remain intact and their fighting spirit unbroken. In his tent among the Myrmidon warriors, Achilles receives reports of the night's daring adventure with the detached interest of an immortal god observing mortal struggles. The capture of Rhesus's prophesied horses, the death of Troy's Thracian ally, the renewed hope flooding the Greek camp hall. These momentous events touch him no more than wind touches mountain stone. His heart knows sorrows yet to come, a silent song lost in the vast indifference of the star-scattered heavens. Part 5. Patroclus in Achilles' armor. Dawn breaks blood-red over Troy's plain, revealing a desperate scene. The Greek forces, once safely entrenched behind their fortifications near the black ships, now teeter on the brink of annihilation. Hector has driven them to the very water's edge, his spear carving death through the narrow corridor between sea and stone. The massive defensive wall the Greeks constructed, those sacred ramparts built with stones hauled from distant hills, lies shattered in 3 places. Through these breaches surged the Trojan defenders like an unstoppable bronze tide, their battle cries reverberating off the ship hulls that once promised glory but now threatened to become funeral pyres. Acrid smoke billows from burning vessels as Trojan torches find their marks. The stench of burning tar and timber chokes the air. Greek heroes, who once boasted of invincibility, now fight with the frenzied desperation of trapped animals. Agamemnon himself bears grievous wounds. Diomedes battles on with his left arm wrapped in blood-soaked bandages. Even mighty Ajax, that towering pillar of Greek strength, retreats before the relentless Trojan onslaught. Yet, amid this maelstrom of chaos and impending doom, one figure remains conspicuously absent from the fray. Inside his tent, among the Myrmidons, Achilles sits motionless as carved marble. His divine armor lies pristine, untouched by battle. His legendary spear gathers dust while his former brothers-in-arms perish for a cause he has abandoned. The greatest warrior of his generation watches the Greek army face destruction with the cold indifference of an immortal god observing meaningless mortal struggles. But if the hero's heart stays frozen against the suffering of kings and warriors, it cannot remain impervious to the anguish of one closer than any brother. Patroclus, son of Menoetius, appears at their dwelling's entrance, tears streaming down his face like dark water cascading down stone. His grief encompasses not merely the dying Greeks, but the devastating choice his beloved companion has made, allowing honor to devour honor, letting pride consume the very cause it was meant to uphold. Why these tears, Patroclus? Achilles speaks with bitter humor, barely masking his own pain. You weep like a small child, clinging to her mother's skirts, begging to be lifted, holding her back with streaming eyes until she relents. Have you received news from FTI? I haven't heard. They say both Menoetius and my father Peleus still live among the Myrmidons. We would mourn together if either had perished. Or do you grieve for the Greeks dying by their ships through their own foolishness? The younger warrior's response erupts from a heart torn between loyalty and justice, between devotion to one man and duty to thousands. Son of Peleus, mightiest of warriors, hear me without anger. Catastrophic grief has befallen the Greeks. All who were once our finest now lie wounded among the ships. Agamemnon is struck down. Odysseus, the spearman, is wounded. Diomedes fights injured, all felled by arrows and spears from distant Trojan archers. Healers tend them with their medicines, while you nurse your implacable wrath. Passion overtakes fear as his voice strengthens, words cascading like water bursting through a dam. May such consuming anger never seize me as it has you. What cursed courage is this? What good will you be to future generations if you refuse to save the Greeks from disgraceful destruction? Pitiless one, surely Peleus was not your father, nor Thetis your mother. The gray sea birthed you, the sheer cliffs, so stone-hard is your heart. But if some prophecy restrains you, if your goddess mother has revealed Zeus's will, then at least send me swiftly with the Myrmidons following, that I might bring light to the despairing Greeks. Lend me your armor to wear upon my shoulders. Perhaps the Trojans will mistake me for you and withdraw from battle. The exhausted sons of Greece might catch their breath. We who are fresh could easily drive these weary warriors back to their city. Away from our ships and shelters, the words hover between them like a blade balanced on its edge. Here hangs the choice that will reshape destiny itself, not through grand royal decrees or massive armies clashing, but through one friend's simple plea to another, offered in pure love and received in the agonizing silence of a conflicted heart. Something shatters within Achilles' chest, sound like ice fracturing on a winter river. Through 9 years of siege and countless days of nursing his wrath, his resolve has stood unshakable. No treasure could sway him, no pleading could reach him, no threats could move him. But this pierces deeper than any bronze blade. This strikes at the very essence of what makes him more than mortal. Despite his divine heritage, his dearest companion stands before him, asking not for gold or glory, not for honor or recognition, but simply for the opportunity to die in his place. The offer carries such innocent courage, such pure-hearted devotion, that even a hero's pride must yield like bronze beneath the smith's hammer. Yet Achilles grants this request, wrapped in conditions that speak to fate's terrible precision. "If you must go," he finally says, his voice thick with emotions he dares not name, "then engrave my words upon your mind. Drive the enemy from the ships, this much I permit. But once you've cleared them away, return immediately. Do not let battle joy intoxicate you into fighting the horse-taming Trojans without me, or you will diminish my honor. Do not press toward Troy in victory's excitement. One of the Olympian immortals might intervene. Apollo, the far shooter, loves them dearly. Return when you've secured the ships, and let others continue the plains fighting." Achilles' hands tremble as he lifts his own armor, the bronze breastplate, hammered by divine craftsmanship, the greaves that have never known defeat, the great shield that has deflected weapons of both gods and mortals. Each piece carries triumphs, memories, bears scars from battles poets still sing, holds power that transforms its wearer beyond mortality. As he helps his friend Dan these sacred implements of war, he knows with prophetic certainty that neither armor nor wearer will return. Patroclus's transformation unfolds like sunrise breaking across the sea. Where moments before stood a gentle youth, better suited to music than slaughter, now appears a figure terrifying in war, divine armor blazing like captured starlight. Only the great spear remains untouched, that ash shaft hewn from Mount Pelion's peak, bronze-tipped and balanced exclusively for Achilles' hand. No other mortal can wield this weapon, for the gods themselves forged it as a wedding gift when Thetis wed mortal Peleus. The Myrmidons swarm around their borrowed champion like wolves scenting blood. These warriors have endured endless months of forced inaction, their battle fury contained like wine in a straining jar. Now, seeing their lord's armor and believing their lord himself has returned to lead them, they howl their joy toward the indifferent heavens. 50 ships they man, 50 companies of Greece's finest warriors ever bred, men who love Achilles more than life itself, who will follow his image wherever death may beckon. The Myrmidons strike like a thunderbolt from clear skies. In one breath, the Trojans surge forward with fire blazing and victory hymns on their lips. In the next, bronze weapons singing their deadly chorus as battle cries shake Troy's ancient foundations. Leading them rides Patroclus, resplendent in his friend's divine armor. 2 Trojan eyes, he appears as fearsome as Achilles himself. Warriors who have learned to dread that gleaming bronze retreat in terror, convinced the son of Peleus has abandoned his anger to rejoin the fight. Heroes who stood firm against mighty Ajax and brave Diomedes now scatter like frightened children before an approaching tempest. The battle's momentum reverses with startling speed. Ships engulfed in flames moments ago are rescued by Myrmidon spears. The breached Argive wall transforms into a gateway through which death flows back toward Troy. Patroclus commands his chariot through the chaos with godlike authority, his borrowed spear feasting on enemy blood, his war cries echoing his beloved companion's own. Yet within victory's intoxicating wine lie the seeds of catastrophe. The gentle youth, who once strummed lyres and healed wounds, becomes drunk on slaughter's power. The divine bronze and blessed steel awakens something primal within him. Each fallen foe stokes his bloodlust. Each Trojan cry of terror inflames his sense of invincibility, driving him to seek ever greater glory. Achilles' cautionary words evaporate like morning dew beneath triumph's blazing sun. Why heed restraint when enemies flee? Why show caution when victory gleams just beyond the next charge? In his mind's eye, the young warrior envisions himself storming through Troy's gates, standing victorious atop her citadel, earning immortal fame. Clad in borrowed godly armor, he feels capable of any feat, deserving of every honor. The advance rolls past the ships, beyond the ramparts, onto the blood-soaked plain where heroes have clashed for 9 grinding years. Behind him, the Myrmidons follow what they believe is their true lord with unwavering devotion. Ahead, Troy's defenders crumble into disarray. For the first time since war's inception, Troy's towering walls loom large before Argive eyes, and her people sample fear's bitter taste. Wrapping himself in a wolf's gray pelt, its fur rendering him nearly invisible against darkness, he ventures alone into the night. Yet from Olympus's heights, Apollo the far-shooter observes with mounting concern as events spiral beyond fate's ordained course. This mortal youth in borrowed divine plumage reaches too far, aspires too high, threatens the delicate balance the immortals have carefully maintained. The god's silver bow sings as he plummets earthward like a falling star, his divine presence warping the very atmosphere. 3 times Patroclus assaults Troy's walls themselves, his borrowed courage propelling him where even the son of Peleus might hesitate. 3 times Apollo personally repels him, the god's immortal hands pressing against his shield, divine voice thundering warnings that reverberate across earth and heaven alike. But the youth, intoxicated by victory and divine armor's might, launches a 4th assault, sealing his doom through his own ambition. The god's rebuke descends like divine judgment. Retreat, Zeus-born Patroclus. Fate decrees that proud Troy shall not fall to your spear, nor even to that of the son of Peleus, who far surpasses you. These words carry cosmic law's weight, the unchangeable will of powers transcending mortal comprehension. Even heroes must bow before such authority. Even gods cannot rewrite what fate has decreed. Yet the damage is complete, the fatal pattern set in motion. Apollo strides through the defending ranks, his divine presence rekindling courage in fear-frozen hearts. His words to Troy's greatest champion ring with promise and prophecy. Hector, and all you Trojan and allied leaders, shame upon you. Will you flee before the Argives like bleating sheep? Patroclus has rallied the Danaans who cowered by their ships. That is not the son of Peleus's wrath still keeps him anchored there, but this warrior wreaks terrible havoc. Stand firm against him. The counterattack builds like summer thunderheads gathering over mountains. Where chaos reigned moments before, purpose now crystallizes. Trojan heroes who scattered before the Myrmidon onslaught remember their sacred duty to home and family. Their allies recall the oaths that summoned them to this distant shore. Battle's balance shifts again as divine will reasserts itself over mortal ambition. At the storm's center stands Hector, son of Priam, greatest of mortal warriors, save one. His bronze spear hungers for blood as his commanding voice transforms rout into resistance, terror into fury. Spotting the borrowed armor gleaming through the battle's press, he recognizes his moment, the opportunity to strike a blow that will resound through eternity. To claim victory, justifying 9 years of blood and tears. When the duel arrives, it unfolds with tragedy's inexorable certainty. Patroclus, despite his noble heart and borrowed courage, is not the son of Peleus. Divine armor can make him appear invincible, but cannot bestow the skill of hands trained since childhood, the strength of limbs blessed with immortal blood, the hard-won experience of one who has never tasted defeat. Yet the youth fights with love's pure desperation, knowing his friend's honor rests upon his shoulders, that thousands of lives hang upon this single combat's outcome. His spear finds its mark repeatedly, spilling Trojan blood onto the thirsty earth. For one shimmering moment, the impossible seems within reach, that love and loyalty might triumph over fate itself. But Zeus's golden scales tip with inexorable weight toward doom's side. Hector's spear, guided by divine will and mortal mastery, discovers the fatal gap between breastplate and helmet, that narrow space where death waits patient as a spider. Bronze pierces flesh with a sound like tearing silk, and Patroclus feels his life force drain away like wine from a shattered vessel, his borrowed armor scattering around him like petals from a dying bloom. The youth's dying words carry prophecy more terrible than any oracle's pronouncement. Boast now, if you will, Hector, but know this death and mighty fate draw near. By noble Peleus' son's hands shall you be slain. The words hover like sacrificial smoke curse and promise, wrapped in a dying breath's rattle. The son of Peleus' armor, bronze, blessed by gods, and steel-tempered in starfire, passes into enemy possession like a fallen kingdom. Hector strips the divine equipment from the cooling corpse as battle rages with renewed ferocity around them. Both armies, knowing something fundamental has shifted, that this conflict's very rules have been rewritten in blood and prophecy. In his shelter, beside the ships, the age's greatest warrior feels his heart shatter like a dropped cup. No messenger brings word, no herald announces the loss, yet he knows with divine blood's certainty that his other self no longer walks beneath the sun. The wail that tears from his throat echoes across the wind-arc sea, a sound of grief so pure and terrible that even the immortals pause in their scheming to listen. Thetis hears her son's anguished cry across ocean's depths and knows fate has turned its face toward the ending. Rising from her silver chambers beneath the waves, she ascends like dawn breaking over mountains, her immortal beauty shadowed by sorrow deeper than the sea itself. She finds her child writhing in the dust like a madman, his divine features contorted by grief beyond mortal understanding. "My son," she whispers, her voice like waves upon shingle, "why do you weep? What sorrow has pierced your heart?" Yet she knows the answer even as the words leave her lips, for destiny's threads lie visible to her immortal sight, and she sees how they converge upon this moment like rivers flowing toward the sea. Achilles raises his tear-streaked face, anguish etched deep in every line. "Mother," he cries, voice breaking with grief, "the Olympian fulfilled his promise, yet what joy can I take from it? Patroclus is dead, my beloved companion, whom I cherished beyond all others, as much as my own breath gone. Hector slew him and stripped the magnificent armor from his body, that wondrous gift the gods bestowed upon Peleus when they bound you to a mortal's bed. How I wish you had remained forever among the immortal sea nymphs, and that Peleus had wed a mortal woman instead. Now endless sorrow pierces your heart for a son you'll never welcome home again. My spirit rebels against living among men any longer, and lest Hector first falls beneath my spear and pays with his life for murdering Patroclus. These words forge an unbreakable chain of destiny. Thetis weeps, her tears cascading like raindrops upon the wind-dark sea, for she comprehends the terrible weight of this vow. Her beloved son, her only child, fruit of her union with mortality, embraces the swift road to immortal glory and early doom. No force in heaven or on earth possesses the power to turn him from this course now. Love has metamorphosed into consuming wrath, gentleness transmuted into savage fury, the protector reborn as destroyer. The sun descends behind the western mountains like a bronze shield, sinking into darkness, bathing Troy's plain in hues of crimson and gold. Tomorrow, freshly forged armor from divine hands will arrive, weapons that will transform their bearer into something mortals can scarcely comprehend. Tomorrow, the son of Peleus will stride back onto the battlefield, bringing carnage unprecedented in this 9-year war. But tonight, in this narrow space between one doom and the next, grief reigns supreme. The Myrmidons raise their voices in mourning for their fallen leader, while their lord tears his golden hair and hurls his anguish toward the indifferent stars. Within Troy's walls, Hector burnishes the captured armor, while his wife Andromache unknowingly weaves funeral shrouds. And somewhere beyond mortal sight, the fates wear their enigmatic smiles, spinning threads that will render this tale eternal. Part 6. The son of Peleus returns vengeance and madness. Dawn erupts over Troy like fresh blood spattered across white marble. The heavens themselves seem to shed crimson tears for the violence about to be unleashed. Deep beneath Mount Olympus, in forges where divine fire burns eternal, Hephaestus, the master craftsman, has toiled through the darkness. His hammer's rhythm echoes against anvils that have shaped weapons for gods since time's beginning. The armor he fashions transcends all mortal artistry, bronze radiating like captured starlight, a shield bearing the entire cosmos in miniature upon its surface, greaves that hum with otherworldly power. When silver-footed Thetis delivers these divine gifts to her grieving son, she discovers him prostrate in the dust beside his friend's lifeless form. Sorrow beyond mortal comprehension has ravaged his godlike features. The sight shatters her immortal heart anew, for she sees not the fearsome warrior he will become, but the innocent child who once played on FTA's sun-warmed shores while she sang ancient songs of fallen heroes. "My child," she murmurs, her voice carrying the rhythm of waves against stone. "Release the dead to their fate. Though grief consumes us, the immortal's will has claimed him. But accept these glorious gifts from Hephaestus. No mortal warrior has ever donned such armor." She arranges the divine panoply before him with the reverence of a priestess preparing sacred offerings, each piece radiating its own inner flame. The metamorphosis begins the instant bronze kisses flesh. Where grief had reduced the hero to childlike weakness, divine craftsmanship now elevates him to godlike terror. The breastplate conforms to his body as though alive. The helmet's crest moves with supernatural menace, and from his eyes blazes a light mortals can barely endure. This is no longer the sullen youth who abandoned battle over wounded pride. This is wrath made flesh, vengeance given human form, death itself, walking upright. When his war cry erupts, it shakes Troy's ancient foundations to their core. 3 times he unleashes his fury toward the morning sky, and 3 times the defenders recoil in terror at the sound. This is not the voice of any mortal champion, but something far more primal, the thunder of earthquakes, the shriek of tempests, the roar of tsunamis annihilating all before them. The battlefield's transformation is instantaneous and absolute. Trojan champions, who stood resolute against mighty Ajax and held ground before Diomedes, now scatter like startled deer before prowling wolves at the mere sight of that blazing figure. Even Hector, bravest among Priam's 50 sons, feels winter's chill creep through his veins at that supernatural battle cry. Yet before the son of Peleus can unleash his fury upon the world, reconciliation must occur with those he abandoned in his wrath. Agamemnon, wounded and desperate, approaches with honeyed words of contrition. Son of Peleus, mightiest of warriors, I was possessed by madness. This I freely confess. One man favored by Zeus outweighs entire armies. He has honored you while bringing ruin upon the Achaean host. But since destructive folly blinded me, I yearn to make amends with boundless compensation. The treasures he promises would once have seemed priceless. 7 pristine tripods, 10 talents of gleaming gold, 20 burnished cauldrons, 12 championship horses, 7 women mastering fine crafts, and Briseis herself returned untouched. Cities, too, he offers, and marriage alliances that would establish the son of Peleus as Hellas's most powerful king. But to the grief-stricken hero, these riches hold no more value than beach pebbles. Son of Atreus, comes his response, terrible in its serene simplicity. Bestow these gifts, or retain them as you choose. But let us turn our minds to battle now. This moment calls not for words and delay while work awaits completion. You shall witness the son of Peleus once more among the vanguard, cutting down Trojan ranks with bronze. Let every man remember this as he engages his foe. The armies assemble with the gravity of priests preparing ritual sacrifice. All recognize that something fundamental has transformed this war's nature. Where previously heroes pursued glory and kings sought honor, now divine wrath walks among them, craving not victory but annihilation, not triumph but the absolute obliteration of everything opposing its path. When Achilles finally strides onto the battlefield, the very earth trembles beneath his feet. His divine armor blazes with celestial fire, brighter than the noon sun. His god-forged spear hungers for Trojan blood, and from his shield emanates a power that turns courageous warriors into trembling cowards. Even his immortal horses, Xanthus and Peleus, gifts from Poseidon himself, sense the doom that rides with their master. As Achilles mounts his war chariot, something extraordinary occurs. Xanthus, the golden, blessed by Hera with human speech, suddenly speaks a chilling prophecy. Swift as the west wind shall we carry you today, mighty Achilles. Yet your death draws near. We bear no blame, is a great God and powerful fate who decree this. Not through our failing did the Trojans strip Patroclus of his armor. Apollo, fair-haired son of Leto, slew him in battle's front and gave glory to Hector. Though we run faster than any wind, you are fated to fall by God and mortal combined. Achilles responds with the defiant acceptance of a true hero. Why prophesy my doom, Xanthus? I need no reminder. I know well that fate decrees my death here, far from beloved Phthia and my parents. Yet I shall not cease until I have driven the Trojans to their fill of war. With those words, he drives his divine team into battle's heart, bearing death like a war banner. The carnage that follows surpasses all previous bloodshed in this 9-year war. Wherever Achilles rides, earth turns black with blood, and the river Scamander chokes on corpses. Trojans fall like wheat before the scythe. Lycaon, once captured and ransomed, now finds no mercy. Asteropaeus, the ambidextrous spearman who hurls two javelins simultaneously, cannot pierce divine armor. Countless others whose names survive only in Homer's catalogue of the slain. Yet simple slaughter cannot satisfy Achilles' star-hot fury. He drives fleeing Trojans into the sacred Scamander itself, transforming crystalline waters crimson, choking the current with so many corpses it slows to a crawl. In this holy stream that has flowed pure since creation, he commits atrocities that horrify even the immortal gods. The river god Scamander can endure no more. Rising from polluted waters in human form, his voice thunders across the battlefield. Son of Peleus, you surpass all mortals in might hand, in evil deeds. The gods perpetually aid you. If Zeus grants you to destroy all Trojans, at least drive them from my stream to do your grim work on the plain. My lovely waters overflow with corpses. I cannot pour my current into the divine sea, choked as I am with the dead, while you kill ruthlessly onward. Cease this madness, prince of warriors. But divine madness possesses Achilles utterly. His response is to leap into the water itself, spear flashing like lightning as he continues his butchery in the sacred stream's very heart. This sacrilege shatters the final restraints binding immortal powers to neutrality. Scamander summons his brother Simois, and together the rivers surge against this mortal who dares defile their holy waters. The flood threatens to drown even Peleus' son. Waves tall as trees crash over divine armor, while the current tears at his feet with liquid stone fingers. For the first time since donning his new panoply, Achilles knows, fear not of death itself, which he has accepted, but of ignoble death, drowned like a swineherd, swept away by winter torrents, rather than falling gloriously before Troy's walls. His desperate prayer to Zeus echoes across earth and heaven. Father Zeus, has no god pitied me enough to save me from this river? After this, I would face anything. Yet none of the heavenly ones bears such blame as my own mother, who deceived me with false prophecies, claiming I would die beneath Troy's walls, struck down by Apollo's swift arrows. Would that Hector had slain Metha, best warrior Troy has bred. Then brave man would have killed brave man. But now shameful death awaits, meat trapped in this great river, like a swineherd whom flooding torrents sweep away. The prayer reaches divine ears, and help arrives from unexpected quarters. Hephaestus, the smith god, master of fire and forge, unleashes flames across the battlefield. The sacred river boils like a cauldron. Fish die in superheated waters. Eels writhe in death agonies as divine fire wars with immortal flood. Steam rises like Titan's breath, while Scamander cries out in agony. Hephaestus, no god can withstand you. I will not fight when you blaze thus. Stop this strife. Let Peleus' son drive defenders from their city. Their quarrels mean nothing to me. As the river yields and waters recede, war spreads to Olympus itself. The gods choose sides with divine passion, mortal striking immortal in conflicts, shaking creation's foundations. Athena fells Eris with a massive stone. Aphrodite leads her fallen lover from battle, only to be struck down by Athena's fist. Poseidon and Apollo circle each other like wrestlers seeking advantage. Yet these celestial conflicts pale before the mortal drama unfolding below. Achilles, saved from drowning, resumes his terrible harvest with renewed fury. Nothing withstands his advance, not the greatest champions, not sacred sites, not war's very laws. He has become a force of nature, as inexorable as earthquakes, and destructive as wildfire. The slaughter drives defenders back to Troy's very gates, where safety beckons beyond bronze-bound doors. At this crucial moment, Apollo intervenes with cunning treachery. Taking young Aganor's form, he leads Achilles on a chase, allowing Troy's main army to reach safety. Only when the god reveals himself does Peleus' son realize the deception. Far-shooter, he calls to the vanishing deity, voice thick with frustrated fury, most destructive of all gods. You have cheated me by turning me from the wall. Many more would have tasted dust before reaching Troy, had you not robbed me of great glory and saved them easily, fearing no vengeance hereafter. Truly would I take revenge upon you, had I the power. Apollo's laughter echoes across the empty plain, as divine and mortal wrath clash like bronze on bronze. Yet the confrontation ends in stalemate. Achilles cannot strike down an immortal, while Apollo dares not directly face such terrible intensity of wrath. The game of gods and heroes continues, with pawns promoted and sacrificed according to rules mortals glimpse only in their dying moments. As the sun reaches its zenith and heat shimmers across blood-soaked plains, one figure remains outside Troy's walls, while safety calls from within. Hector, son of Priam, greatest of mortal warriors, save one alone, stands motionless as a statue before the Iliad gate. His bronze armor gleams in harsh light. His great spear casts a shadow like a sundial's marker. In his eyes burns knowledge that his hour has arrived at last. Behind him, Troy's walls offer sanctuary and the promise of many more years. Before him, across the corpse-strewn plain, death approaches in Achilles' form divine armor, blazing like a falling star. Terrible spear, thirsting for blood to balance vengeance's scales. Between these two choices, safety and shame, or honor and death, the greatest defender must make the choice that will echo through eternity. The stage is set for the climactic confrontation. Two legendary warriors will face each other in mortal combat. Only one will survive. Troy's destiny hangs not on the clash of armies, but on this single duel between champions whose names will echo through eternity. The wind carries the metallic scent of blood and acrid smoke across the battlefield, while a nightingale's mournful song drifts from the distance, as if lamenting the tragedy about to unfold. Part 7. Hector's Fall. Priam's grief. Troy's greatest champion stands alone before the Iliad gate, motionless as a bronze monument. His shadow stretches long and dark across stones polished smooth by countless warriors' feet. Behind him, the towering walls promise safety and life. Before him, across the corpse-strewn plain, death approaches in the form of Achilles, son of Peleus' god-forged armor blazing with divine radiance. For 9 long years, Hector has served as Troy's sword and shield, her brightest hope and strongest defender. He has defeated the mightiest Greek champions in single combat, held his ground when lesser men fled in terror, and carried the weight of an entire civilization on his shoulders. Yet now, as that blazing figure draws closer, with murder burning in his eyes, even this greatest of Priam's sons feels fear's icy touch upon his warrior's heart. From Troy's high ramparts, King Priam witnesses his sons approaching doom. The aged monarch tears at his gray hair in anguish, his voice breaking with a father's desperate love. "Hector, my beloved son, do not face that man alone. He will destroy you, for he is far stronger. If only the gods hated him as I do vultures, and dogs would feast on his corpse, and this bitter grief would leave my heart. He has slaughtered or enslaved so many of your brothers. Come inside these walls, my child. Be the savior of Troy's men and women. Do not hand glory to Achilles and throw away your precious life." Queen Hecuba adds her voice to her husband's plea, bearing the breast that once nursed her son. "Hector, my child, honor this breast and show mercy to your mother. If I ever comforted you with it, remember that now, dear son. Fight this merciless man from within our walls, not out there as his target. If he kills you, neither I nor your noble wife will mourn you on your deathbed, we, who gave you life and love. Instead, far from us both, beside the Greek ships, savage dogs will devour your body. But their anguished pleas cannot penetrate ears already sealed by honor's iron demands. Troy's defender knows that retreat now would bring eternal shame, that the city's greatest warrior cannot purchase his life with his people's hope. Far better to die gloriously than to live knowing that cowardice opened Troy's gates to destruction. His decision is final. Here he will make his stand. Here he will fight. Here, if the fates decree it, he will die. Yet, when that terrifying figure approaches close enough to see clearly, when the god-forged armor blazes like the sun incarnate, and the legendary spear seems to thirst visibly for blood-even heroic resolve, falters. Achilles advances like wildfire, devouring everything before it, like an earthquake, sundering the world's foundations, like death itself, given human form and terrible purpose. What mortal courage can stand firm before such supernatural fury? Fear and undeniable seizes Troy's greatest champion. 3 times Hector flees around the city's mighty walls, with Achilles in relentless pursuit, their bronze-shod feet pounding against ancient stone, while the watching gods weigh this final contest in their golden scales of fate. Athena and Apollo hover close, poised to intervene, while Zeus himself holds the balance that will decide not merely the fate of 2 warriors, but the destiny of Troy itself. On their 4th circuit, divine treachery settles the matter. Athena assumes the form of Deiphobus, Hector's beloved brother, and calls out with false reassurance, "Dear brother, swift-footed Achilles presses you hard, chasing you around our father's city. Come, let us stand together and drive him back." The deception is flawless, the false hope unspeakably cruel. The goddess gives Troy's defender the courage to make his stand precisely so she can strip it away at the critical moment. The duel that follows will be sung by poets as long as humanity endures. Both warriors halt their chase, breathing heavily from their race around the walls. Divine and mortal bronze gleam brilliantly in the harsh sunlight. The narrative here appears to shift to an earlier battle, Patroclus' death at Hector's hands. Hector, wearing borrowed armor, faces Patroclus, who fights in Achilles' gear. Though evenly matched in skill, fate has already chosen the victor. Patroclus fights with the fierce desperation of friendship and duty, knowing his beloved companion's honor rests on his shoulders, that thousands of lives hang on this single combat's outcome. His spear draws Trojan blood more than once. For one fleeting moment, the impossible seems within reach, that love and loyalty might overcome destiny itself. But Zeus's golden scales tip with inexorable weight toward doom. Hector's spear, guided by divine will and mortal skill, finds the fatal gap between breastplate and helmet, that narrow space where death waits patient as a spider. Bronze pierces flesh with a sound like tearing silk, and Patroclus feels his life flowing out like wine from a shattered vessel. As he falls, his borrowed armor scattering around him like petals from a dying flower. Patroclus's final words carry prophecy more terrible than any oracles. You boast now, Hector, but know this death and powerful fate are closing in on you. By the hands of noble Achilles you shall soon be slain. The words hang in the air like sacrificial smoke, a curse and promise wrapped in a dying breath. Achilles' divine armor, blessed by gods and tempered in celestial fire, passes into enemy hands. Hector strips the magnificent gear from the cooling corpse, while battle rages with renewed fury around them. Both armies, sensing that something fundamental has shifted, that the war's very rules have been rewritten in blood and prophecy. Far away, beside the Greek ships, the age's greatest warrior feels his heart shatter like a cup dashed on stone. No messenger brings word, no herald announces the loss. Yet Achilles knows, with the certainty of his divine blood, that his beloved companion walks no longer beneath the sun. The wail that erupts from his throat echoes across the wind-dark sea, sound of grief so pure and terrible that even the immortal gods pause to listen. Thetis, the silver-footed sea goddess, hears her son's anguished cry across ocean depths and knows that fate has turned its face toward the ending. Rising from her silver chambers beneath the waves, she comes like dawn breaking over mountains, her immortal beauty now marked by sorrow deeper than the sea itself. She finds her child writhing in the dust like a madman, his divine features twisted by grief beyond mortal comprehension. "My son," she whispers, her voice like waves breaking on shore. "Why do you weep? What sorrow has pierced your heart?" Achilles lifts his head, eyes red from weeping, voice cracked with anguish. "Mother, Zeus has fulfilled his promise to me, but what joy is there in it? My dear companion Patroclus has perished, him whom I loved above all others, as much as my own life. I have lost him, and Hector, who killed him, has stripped away the armor, that magnificent armor, a wonder to behold, which the gods gave to Peleus as a glorious gift when they brought you to a mortal's bed. Would that you had remained among the deathless sea nymphs, and that Peleus had married a mortal woman. But now you must suffer endless grief for your doomed son, whom you will never welcome home again. For my heart will not let me live among men unless Hector first loses his life, struck down by my spear, and pays the price for killing Patroclus." These words seal his fate as surely as bronze seals a tomb. Silver-footed Thetis weeps tears that fall like rain upon the wind-dark sea, for she knows what this choice means. Her son, her only child, born of her union with mortality, chooses the short path leading to immortal glory and early death. No power in heaven or earth can turn him from this course, now that love has transformed into wrath, gentleness into fury, the protector into the destroyer. The sun sets like a bronze shield behind the western mountains, painting Troy's plain in shades of blood and gold. Tomorrow will bring fresh armor forged by divine hands, weapons that will make their wielder terrible beyond mortal understanding. Tomorrow will bring the son of Peleus back to the battlefield, and with him slaughter the world has never seen. But tonight, in the brief space between one doom and the next, grief rules all. The Myrmidons, keen for their fallen leader, while their lord tears his hair and cries his anguish to the uncaring stars. In Troy, Hector polishes captured armor, while his wife weaves shrouds she doesn't yet know she need. And somewhere beyond mortal sight, the fates smile their terrible smiles and continue weaving the pattern that will make this tale immortal. Part 6. The son of Peleus returns. Vengeance and madness. Dawn breaks over Troy's plain, painting the sky crimson as if the heavens themselves bleed for what is to come. Far beneath Mount Olympus, in forges where divine fire burns eternal, Hephaestus has worked through the night. His hammer rings against immortal anvils, crafting armor beyond mortal comprehension, bronze that captures starlight itself, a shield bearing the entire world in intricate relief, greaves that hum with supernatural power. Silver-footed Thetis brings these divine gifts to her son and finds him prostrate in the dust beside Patroclus's corpse. His immortal features ravaged by grief no mortal could survive. Her heart shatters anew, seeing not the warrior he must become, but the child who once played on sunlit shores while she sang of ancient heroes. "My child," she whispers, her voice carrying the cadence of waves, "release the dead to fate's care. Though we mourn him, the gods have claimed him. Accept these glorious gifts from Hephaestus. No mortal has ever worn such armor." She arranges the divine panoply before him like sacred offerings, each piece radiating its own otherworldly fire. The transformation is instantaneous. Bronze touches flesh, and where grief had weakened him, divine craft makes him terrifying as any god. The breastplate conforms to his body as if alive. The helmet's crest trembles with menace, and from his eyes blazes a light that burns mortal vision. Gone is the sulking youth who abandoned his comrades over wounded pride. Before Troy now stands wrath made flesh, vengeance incarnate, death walking in human form. His war cry shakes Troy's ancient foundations. 3 times he roars his fury skyward, and 3 times the Trojan defenders recoil in terror. This is no mortal voice, it carries the thunder of earthquakes, the howl of tempests, the crash of waves annihilating coastlines. The battlefield's response is immediate and catastrophic. Trojan heroes who stood firm against Ajax and held ground before Diomedes now flee like startled deer. Even Hector, bravest of Priam's sons, feels winter's chill grip his warrior's heart at that supernatural cry. But before unleashing his fury, reconciliation must come. Agamemnon, wounded and desperate, approaches with honeyed apologies. "Son of Peleus, greatest of warriors, I was mad. I confess it freely. Zeus favors one man above many armies. He has honored you while striking down our host. But since destructive madness blinded me, I wish to make amends with boundless recompense. The gifts he offers would once have seemed priceless. 7 unfired tripods, 10 talents of gold, 20 gleaming cauldrons, 12 race-winning horses, 7 skilled craftswomen, and Bryce's returned untouched. Cities, too, he promises, and marriage alliances that would make Achilles the mightiest king in all Greece. But to the grieving hero, these treasures hold no more value than beach pebbles. "Son of Atreus," comes his reply, terrible in its simplicity. "Give these gifts, or keep them as you will. But let us turn to battle now. This is no time for talk, while work remains undone. You will see the son of Peleus once more among the foremost fighters, cutting down Trojan ranks with bronze. Let each man remember this as he fights." The armies form their lines with priestly solemnity. all sense that something fundamental has shifted in the war's nature. Where before heroes fought for glory and kings for honor, now divine wrath walks among them, seeking not victory but annihilation, not triumph but the absolute destruction of everything in its path. When Achilles finally strides onto the battlefield, the earth itself seems to recoil. His armor blazes like a second sun. His divine spear thirsts visibly for blood, and from his shield radiates power that weakens the strong and terrifies the brave. Even his immortal horses Xanthus and Peleus, gifts from the sea gods, sense the doom riding with their master. As he mounts his chariot, Xanthus the golden suddenly speaks prophecy that freezes blood. We shall bear you swift as wind today, mighty hero. But your death day approaches. We bear no blamelessly a great god and powerful fate. Not through any failing of ours did the Trojans strip armor from Patroclus's shoulders. Apollo, fair-haired Leto's son, killed him in the forefront and gave glory to Hector. We could run swift as the west wind, which men say is fastest of all things. But it is your fate to be overpowered by a god and a mortal. The hero's response rings with both acceptance and defiance. Xanthus, why prophesy my doom? I know it well, my fate is to die here, far from my dear father and mother. But still, I will not stop until I have driven the enemy to their fill of war. With these words, he drives his divine team forward into battle's heart, carrying death like a banner before him. The slaughter that follows surpasses anything the war has witnessed. Where Achilles rides, earth grows black with blood, and the river Scamander chokes on corpses. Trojans fall like wheat before the reaper. Lycaon, once captured and ransomed, now finds no mercy. Asteropaeus, the ambidextrous spearman hurling two spears simultaneously, cannot pierce divine armor. Dozens more whose names survive only in the poet's catalogue of the dead. But simple killing cannot satisfy fury burning with stellar heat. He drives the fleeing enemy into the sacred river itself, turning clear waters crimson with blood, filling the current with so many corpses it slows to a crawl. In this sacred stream that has flowed pure since creation, he commits acts that make even gods recoil in horror. The river god Scamander can endure no more. Rising from polluted waters in human form, his voice booms like thunder. Son of Peleus, you surpass all mortals in might and evil deeds alike. The gods always help you. If Zeus has granted you to destroy all defenders, at least drive them from my stream and do your grim work on the plain. My lovely waters are filled with corpses. I cannot pour my current into the divine sea, choked as I am with the dead, while you go on killing ruthlessly. Cease now. Amazement holds me, prince of the people. But divine madness has seized the hero completely. His response to the river god's plea is to leap into the water itself, spear flashing like lightning as he continues his butchery in the sacred stream's very heart. This sacrilege breaks the last restraints, binding immortal powers to neutrality. Scamander calls upon his brother Simois, and together the two rivers surge against this mortal who dares defile their holy waters. The flood that rises threatens to drown even Achilles. Waves tall as trees crash over his divine armor, while the current tears at his feet with liquid stone fingers. For the first time since donning his new panoply, the hero knows fear not of death, which he has accepted, but of dying ignobly. Drowned like a swineherd, swept away by winter storms, rather than falling gloriously before Troy's walls. His prayer to Zeus echoes across earth and heaven. Father, how has none of the gods taken pity to save me from this river? After this, I would face anything, but no heavenly one is so much to blame as my own mother, who beguiled me with lies, saying I would die beneath well-armed Troy's walls, struck down by Apollo's swift arrows. Would that Hector had killed me, he who is the best warrior bred here. Then a brave man would have slain a brave man. But now it is my fate to be caught in shameful death, trapped in this great river, like a pig boy whom a torrent sweeps away as he tries to cross in a storm. The prayer reaches divine ears, and help comes from unexpected quarters. Hephaestus, the smith, master of fire and forge, unleashes his flames across the battlefield. The sacred river boils like a cauldron. Fish die in superheated water, and eels writhe in death agonies as divine fire wars with immortal flood. Steam rises like Titan's breath, while Scamander cries out in pain. Hephaestus, no god can stand against you. I will not fight you when you blaze like this. Stop the strife. Let the son of Peleus drive the defenders from their city. What are their quarrels and suffering to me? As the river yields and waters recede, war spreads to Olympus itself. The gods take sides with divine passion, immortal striking immortal, in conflicts that shake creation's foundations. Athena fells Eris with a great stone. Aphrodite leads her fallen lover from the field, only to be struck down by Athena's fist, while Poseidon and Apollo circle each other, like wrestlers seeking advantage. But these celestial conflicts pale before the mortal drama unfolding on the plain below. Achilles, saved from drowning, resumes his terrible harvest with renewed fury. Nothing can stand before his advance, the greatest champions, not sacred sites, not the very laws that govern war itself. He has become a force of nature, as inexorable as earthquake, and as destructive as wildfire. The slaughter drives the defenders back to Troy's very gates, where safety beckons just beyond bronze-bound doors. But at this crucial moment, Apollo intervenes with subtle treachery, taking young Agenor's form to lead the hero on a chase that allows the main Trojan army to reach safety. Only when the god reveals himself does Achilles realize the deception. Far-shooter, he calls to the vanishing deity, his voice thick with frustrated fury, most destructive of all gods. You have cheated me by turning me from the wall. Many more would have bitten the dust before reaching Troy if you had not robbed me of great glory and easily saved them, having no fear of vengeance hereafter. Truly, I would take revenge on you if I had the power. The gods' laughter echoes across the empty plain as divine and mortal wrath clash like bronze on bronze. But the confrontation ends in stalemate. Achilles cannot strike down an immortal, while Apollo dare not face directly the wrath that burns with such terrible intensity. The game of gods and heroes continues, with pawns promoted and sacrificed, according to rules that mortals glimpse only in their dying moments. As the sun reaches its zenith and heat shimmers across the blood-soaked plain, one figure remains outside Troy's walls, while safety calls from within. Hector, son of Priam, greatest of mortal warriors, save one alone, stands motionless as a statue before the Scion gate. His bronze armor gleams in harsh light. His great spear casts a shadow like a sundial's marker, and in his eyes burns the knowledge that his hour has come at last. Behind him, Troy's walls offer sanctuary and the promise of many more years of life. Before him, Across the corpse-strewn plain, death approaches in Achilles' form, divine armor blazing like a falling star, terrible spear thirsting for the blood that will balance vengeance's scales. Between these two choices, safety and shame, or honor and death, the greatest defender must make the choice that will echo through eternity. The stage is set for this long tragedy's final act. Two heroes will meet. Only one will walk away, and Troy's fate will be decided not by the clash of armies, but by the outcome of single combat between champions whose names will outlive their city's very stones. The wind carries the scent of blood and burning across the wind-dark plain, while somewhere in the distance a nightingale sings of sorrows yet to come. Part 7. Hector's Fall, Priam's Grief. Before the Scion gate, Hector stands motionless as carved bronze, his shadow stretching across stones polished by countless warriors' footsteps. Behind him lies Troy's protective embrace and the promise of tomorrow. Before him, death strides forward in gleaming armor. Achilles, son of Peleus, blazing like a fallen star across the blood-soaked plain. For 9 long years, Hector has been Troy's living shield. He has faced Greece's mightiest champions and emerged victorious, standing firm when lesser men scattered like leaves before wind. The hopes of an entire civilization rest upon his bronze-clad shoulders. Yet now, as that terrifying figure approaches with murder burning in his eyes, even the bravest of Priam's sons feels fear's icy touch upon his warrior heart. From Troy's high towers, aged King Priam watches doom approach and tears at his gray hair in anguish. Hector, his voice cracks with desperate father's love. My beloved son, do not face that man alone. He is stronger than you. Pitiless Achilles, if only the gods loved him as I do, then dogs and vultures would feast on his corpse, and bitter grief would release my heart. He has robbed me of so many noble sons, killing them, selling them to distant islands. Come inside the walls, my child. Save Troy's men and women. Do not grant glory to Peleus' son at the cost of your precious life. His mother, Hecuba, adds her voice, bearing the breast that once nursed him. Hector, my child, honor this breast and pity your mother. If ever I soothed your sorrows with my milk, remember it now. Ward off this killer from within our walls. Don't stand against him as champion. Ruthless Manif, he kills you. Neither I nor your beloved wife will mourn you properly on your deathbed. Far from us, by the Greek ships, swift dogs will devour you. But their pleas cannot penetrate ears deafened by honor's call. Hector knows that fleeing now would mean eternal shame. The greatest warrior cannot purchase his life with his city's hope. Better to die gloriously than live knowing cowardice opened Troy's gates to her enemies. His decision is made. Here he stands. Here he fights. Here, if the fates decree it, he dies. Yet, when that dreadful figure draws near enough to see clearly, when divine armor blazes like captured sunlight, and that immortal spear visibly thirsts for blood-aven heroic resolve, falters. Achilles approaches like wildfire consuming everything, like earthquake shattering the world's foundations, like death itself given human form and murderous purpose. What mortal courage can stand firm before such supernatural fury? Be honest. 3 times he flees around the city walls with Achilles in relentless pursuit, their bronze-shod feet pounding stone while watching gods weigh this final contest in golden scales. Athena and Apollo hover close, poised to intervene, while Zeus himself holds the balance that will determine not merely to heroes' fates, but Troy's ultimate destiny. On the fourth circuit, divine treachery settles the matter. Athena assumes the form of Deiphobus, Hector's beloved brother, calling out with honeyed deception, "Dear brother, swift-footed Achilles presses you hard, chasing you around Priam's city. Come, let us stand together and beat back his attack." The illusion is flawless, the false hope unbearably cruel. The goddess grants the defender courage to make his stand precisely so she can snatch it away at the critical moment. The duel that follows will echo through ages as long as human voices sing of heroes. Both warriors halt their chase, breathing hard from their circuit. Divine and mortal bronze gleam in harsh sunlight. They are matched in all but one crucial element, where Hector fights with mortal strength and skill. His opponent draws upon power flowing directly from Olympus. Son of Peleus, Hector calls across the space between them, his voice steady despite gnawing fear. "I will flee no longer. 3 times I ran around Priam's great city, unable to face your attack. Now my heart urges me to stand and confront you. I will kill or be killed. But come, let us swear oaths before the gods, for they will witness and guard our agreement. I will not dishonor your body if Zeus grants me victory and I take your life. After stripping your glorious armor, I will return your corpse to the Greeks. Promise you will do the same." But mercy finds no home in Achilles' heart. His reply cuts like winter wind across a graveyard. "Hector, speak not to me of oaths, accursed one, as there are no faithful oaths between lions and men, as wolves and lambs share no harmony of heart but plot each other's destruction continually, so there can be no love between us, nor shall oaths exist between us until one falls and gluts Eris with his blood. Remember all your skill. Now you must prove yourself, spearman and bold warrior. There is no escape for you. Athena will soon bring you low by my spear, and you will pay in full for all my companions. Sorrows those you killed with your spear. Achilles' first cast comes swift as fate itself, his divine spear flying toward Hector's throat. But Hector sees it coming and ducks loth. A bronze point passes overhead to bury itself in earth behind him. Athena retrieves it instantly, invisible to mortal eyes, returning it to her champion's hands, while Hector believes his enemy now stands weaponless. Now Hector hurls his own bronze-tipped ash, his aim true. The spear strikes squarely in the center of Achilles' shield and rings like a temple bell, but divine craftsmanship turns aside mortal strength. The weapon rebounds harmlessly, leaving Hector staring in dismay at arms he thought would pierce any bronze ever forged. He turns to seek another spear from his brother Deiphobus, but the false form has vanished like morning mist. The terrible truth dawns. The gods themselves have deceived him, abandoning him to face divine wrath with only mortal strength. In this moment of absolute despair, Troy's greatest champion discovers his truest nobility. "Ah," he says aloud, his voice carrying across the plain with awful clarity. "The gods have summoned me to death. I thought Deiphobus stood near me, but he remains within the wall, and Athena has deceived me. Now evil death is close not, far away on. There is no escape. This must have pleased Zeus and his far-shooting son, who defended me before, but now my fate has caught me. Let me not die without effort and inglorious, but in doing some great deed for men hereafter to remember." Drawing his great sword, he charges with a cornered lion's desperation, bronze singing as it leaves the scabbard. But Achilles meets him with recovered spear, divine point seeking the one gap in armor. He knows exists that small space beneath the chin where helmet and corselet do not quite meet, where Hector's own armor offers protection but not salvation. The bronze enters cleanly, sliding between neck bones but missing the windpipe, so speech remains possible. Troy's champion falls backward into dust, divine armor clattering around him like discarded dreams, while his slayer stands over him with terrible satisfaction burning in his eyes. Hector, Achilles, speaks, his voice thick with long-nursed hatred. You thought, as you stripped Patroclus, that you would be safe, giving no thought to me in my absence. Fool, one remained behind by the hollow ships, far greater than he, who would be your avenger, who have loosened your knees. Dogs and birds will tear you shamefully, but the Greeks will give him proper funeral rites. Even in death's grip, Hector's nobility shines forth. His final plea carries all human dignity's weight. I beseech you, by your life, your knees, your parents, do not let dogs devour me by the Greek ships. Accept bronze and gold, the gifts my father and queenly mother will give you, and return my body to be taken home, so Trojans and their wives may give me my due of fire in death. But vengeance has made Achilles more beast than man. His response strips away all pretense of heroic honor. Dog, do not beseech me by knees or parents. I wish my heart and spirit would drive me to cut up your flesh and eat it raw for what you have done. No one can keep the dogs from your head, not even if they bring 10 or 20 times your ransom and weigh it out and promise more besides. Not even if Priam offers your weight in gold. Your queenly mother will not lay you on a bed and mourn the son she bore. Dogs and birds will devour you utterly. Hector's dying words carry prophecy that will echo through eternity. I know you well, and foresaw this. I could not persuade you, for the heart in your breast is iron. But take care, lest I become a cause of the gods' wrath against you on the day when Paris and Apollo destroy you at the Scion gate. Valiant though you are, death takes him then, his spirit flying from his limbs like a bird taking wing, leaving only cooling bronze and flesh that was once Troy's greatest hope. The desecration that follows shocks even war-hardened Greeks. Achilles pierces his enemy's ankles behind the tendons and threads leather thongs through the wounds, binding the corpse to his chariot. Then mounting his divine car, he drives wildly around Troy's walls, dragging his prize through dust and stones, while Hector's people watch in horror from their towers. 3 times he circles the city with his grisly trophy, bronze armor scraping stone, while blood marks their passage like a painter's brush across canvas. The sight breaks Priam's heart completely. The old king tears his hair and rolls in dung, calling out his son's name while his people weep for their lost protector. Within the palace, Andromache weaves at her loom, her hands moving in women's work's eternal rhythm, dreaming of her husband's safe return. She calls for servants to heat a bath for Hector when he comes home from battle, not knowing he will never again need warmth from mortal fire. Only when wailing reaches her ears does terrible understanding dawn. Racing to the wall like a madwoman, she sees horses dragging what was once her beloved across pitiless stones. Her scream echoes across Troy as consciousness flees her like a bird taking wing. Hector, unhappy am I. We were both born to one fatu in Troy in Priam's house, and I in Thebe under wooded Placus in Aesion's house, who raised me when small, ill-fated father of ill-fated daughter. Would that he had never begotten me. Now you go to Hades' house, beneath earth's secret places, leaving me in hateful widowhood in the palace. And your son is still just a baby son of you and me, both doomed. The funeral games for Patroclus unfold over 12 days, magnificent in scope and solemn in purpose. Champions compete in chariot racing, boxing, wrestling, foot racing, spear throwing, and archery, while Achilles distributes prizes that would ransom kingdoms. Yet, through all these celebrations of his friend's memory, his own grief remains unassuaged, his fury unquenched. Each dawn finds him dragging Hector's corpse around Patroclus's burial mound, seeking, in this repetitive cruelty, some release from pain that gnaws at his heart like a living thing. But divine intervention preserves the body from corruption. Apollo protects his faithful servant even in death, keeping flesh whole despite its daily torment. On Olympus, the gods grow sickened by this spectacle. Zeus himself finally intervenes, sending Eris to summon aged Priam for a mission that will test human courage's very limits. The rainbow goddess finds the old king in his palace, broken by grief, but still clinging to his royal station's dignity. Divine Priam, she speaks with honeyed words, carrying divine command. Zeus bids you go to the Greek ships to ransom your son, carrying gifts that will soften Achilles' heart. Go alone. Let no other Trojan accompany you, but only a herald, an old man, to drive the mules and smooth-wheeled wagon, and bring back to the city the dead man whom divine Achilles has slain. Let not death be in your thoughts, or any fear. Such a guide will escort you, the guide of souls, who will lead you until you come to Peleus' son. The journey through enemy lines requires courage beyond mortal measure. In darkness deeper than a moonless night, the old king drives his treasure-laden wagon past Greek sentries who sleep under divine enchantment. Hermes himself serves as guide, the god of boundaries and transitions, leading this ultimate crossing between worlds of living and dead. They find Achilles in his shelter, alone with his grief and terrible satisfaction. The sight that greets Priam's eyes would break a lesser man's spirit entirely. His son's corpse lies carelessly beside the wall, like discarded rubbish, while the slayer sits brooding over his own unhealed wounds. What follows next will be remembered as long as human hearts can feel compassion. The old king enters like a supplicant, falls at his enemy's feet, and kisses the terrible hands that killed his son. Remember your own father, godlike one, who is of like age with me on old age's grievous threshold. Perhaps those dwelling around him trouble him, and there is no one to ward off ruin and destruction. Yet he, when he hears that you still live, rejoices in his heart, and hopes every day that he will see his dear son returning from Troy. But I am utterly unfortunate, since I fathered the best sons in wide Troy, and I say that none of them is left. The appeal strikes something deep within the hero's heart, not warrior's pride or avenger's fury, but simple human recognition of shared mortality. Common grief, the bonds that unite all fathers in their love for their children. For the first time since Patroclus fell, tears flow from those terrible eyes. Achilles weeps, not for his friend alone, but for universal sorrow that touches all who love. Unhappy old man, he says at last, his voice gentle as rain after drought, you have indeed endured much grief in your heart. How did you dare to come alone to the Greek ships, to the sight of the man who has killed many of your noble sons? Your heart is iron. But come now, sit on this chair, and we shall let our sorrows lie quiet in our hearts for all our grief. There is no profit in chill lamentation. This is the lot the gods have spun for wretched mortals to live in misery while they themselves are free from care. The ransom is accepted, the body prepared with gentle hands. For one brief moment, the terrible machinery of war stops its grinding to allow human decency its due. Father and sons, slayer, share food and wine while speaking of mortality and loss, finding in their common humanity a bridge across the chasm that separates Greek from Trojan, victor from vanquished, young from old. When Priam departs in darkness before dawn, he carries with him more than his son's corpse. He bears the knowledge that even in war's darkest hours, mercy may still flower like roses among thorns. Achilles grants him 12 days of truce for Hector's funeral, a gift more precious than gold or bronze. The funeral of Troy's greatest champion unfolds with magnificent ceremony befitting a fallen hero. For 9 days, the Trojans venture beyond their walls to gather timber, constructing a funeral pyre that rises like a mountain toward the heavens. Throughout this time, the women of Troy filled the air with ancient lamentations, their voices weaving sorrow into song, while poets craft verses destined to outlive even Troy's immortal stones. On the 10th day, as custom demands, they set flame to the pyre. Hector's spirit, at last released from earthly bonds, begins its inevitable journey to the shadowy halls of Hades, where all mortal heroes must eventually dwell. As hungry flames devour the mortal shell of Troy's beloved defender, warriors from both Greek and Trojan camps stand witness to this solemn rite. The smoke ascends arrow-straight into an utterly still sky, rising like an offering to the gods themselves, bearing upward the collective hopes, fears, and prayers of an entire civilization. When at last the flames subside to glowing embers and the sacred bones are reverently collected into a golden urn, the Trojans raise a burial mound of earth and stone, a monument that will mark this hallowed ground for countless generations, stretching into the unborn future. Yet the war grinds onward, unfinished. Troy's ultimate fate still lurks in the days ahead, the wooden horse, the burning towers, the final blood-soaked chapter yet to be written. But in this moment between Hector's death and Troy's doom, something profound has transformed in the moral universe. A fundamental truth about the nature of honor and humanity has been illuminated in that sacred space between vengeance and mercy, between glory's insatiable demands and simple human decency's quiet claims. The lesson burns as bright as Hector's funeral flames, that even in war's darkest hours, compassion can pierce through hatred's armor. Part 8. The long shadow of Troy as evening descends upon the Trojan plain. Hector's funeral pyre burns with diminishing intensity, its smoke ascending into a sky streaked with twilight. Troy's mighty walls remain standing in the fading light, yet the city they protect has been irrevocably transformed by the death of its champion. Within the Greek encampment, Achilles sits in contemplation beside his black ships, his legendary rage now extinguished, replaced by the heavy burden of prophecy. The conflict continues beyond this moment, though Homer's epic concludes here. Future poets will chronicle what follows: the arrival of the Amazon queen Penthesilea, the Ethiopian prince Memnon's valor, the cunning stratagem of the wooden horse, and Troy's final, fiery destruction when Priam's kingdom falls to Greek treachery. At this pivotal juncture in the Trojan War, the intricate web of destiny reveals itself in terrible clarity. Achilles has exacted his vengeance for Patroclus's death. Yet the consequences ripple far beyond personal grief or individual heroism. By choosing the warrior's path to eternal glory over a long, peaceful life, he has sealed not only his own fate, but influenced the course of nations. His doom approaches swiftly. Paris, guided by Apollo's divine hand, will soon loose the arrow that strikes Achilles' vulnerable heel. The prophecy Hector uttered with his dying words, now inevitable as the changing seasons. Yet, within these final scenes, a profound truth about heroic virtue emerges that transcends martial prowess. When aged King Priam humbled himself before his son's killer, when Achilles shed tears for both his fallen companion and his enemy's grieving father, when compassion bloomed amid implacable fury, this moment revealed that true greatness resides not in battlefield supremacy or bronze weaponry, but in the moral courage to show mercy. Troy's walls will inevitably crumble when the gods decree their fall. The legendary warriors of this epic, Achilles, Hector, Ajax, and countless others, will descend into death's realm, their magnificent bronze armor corroding beneath the earth, their voices silenced by mortality's absolute power. Yet the eternal truths their struggles illuminate concerning honor and hubris, devotion and devastation, human connection and destructive passion, these shall persist as long as humanity endures beneath the celestial sphere. Future generations of poets, gathering in great halls to recite tales of antiquity, will recount how divine wrath initiated this saga and human mercy concluded it. They will sing of heroes who shone brilliantly, but briefly, like meteors streaking across night's darkness before vanishing into legend. Through their verses, they will explore the timeless questions that propelled these champions toward glory and doom. What value truly justifies honor's cost? How much grief can the human heart endure when immortal gods contest with mortal men? Who claims victory? These answers remain elusive, slipping beyond grasp like shadows at dusk. Perhaps this ambiguity serves a purpose. Perhaps the pursuit matters more than the destination, the questioning more than any final answer. Throughout history, new generations of heroes will emerge to confront these same fundamental challenges, discovering within themselves what courage demands, what duty requires, what love achieves, even when confronting certain mortality. The Greek campfires along the Aegean shore flicker and fade into darkness. Yet somewhere in that gathering night, a poet's voice rises once more with Homer's ancient invocation. Sing, O goddess, the anger of Achilles. In that beginning lies every ending. Every story finds its origin. Every hero commences the journey toward whatever immortality awaits those who dare to live as though their choices possess meaning, as though honor justifies any sacrifice, as though love can triumph even over death's finality. The Mediterranean wind sweeps across the darkening battlefield, mingling sea spray with the dust that covers royalty and common soldiers alike. Above, the constellations wheel through their eternal patterns, measuring time for both divine and mortal beings, while below, humanity's great story continues, its endless cycle ancient, yet perpetually renewed, forever singing of the glory and grief that define human existence. Thus concludes the tale of wrath and its reverberations, of heroes and their fateful decisions, of the long shadow that Troy's narrative casts across subsequent ages. May those who hear this story remember, and through remembrance honor both the fallen and those yet to fall. Ultimately, we all participate in the same eternal drama. each of us the hero of our own chapter in an infinite book that knows no final page. Darkness deepens over the Trojan plain. The funeral fires diminish to glowing embers, and silence descends upon the field where gods and mortals enacted their timeless conflict. Yet the song endures, will forever endure, as long as human hearts beat with the rhythms of courage and compassion, wrath and mercy, love and loss, the eternal music that transforms us all into heroes. And so, dear listener, our journey through the Iliad comes to its close. Thank you for joining me on this epic voyage across Bronze Age battlefields and into the hearts of ancient heroes. Whether you stayed awake through every word or drifted into peaceful dreams somewhere along the way, I hope this timeless tale brought you comfort, wonder, or insight. Until we meet again in another story, may you rest well, dream deeply, and wake refreshed. Good night, and thank you for listening.